Hello, everyone. Welcome to Week of Manga Recap. It's December 1st, 2021, which means we're halfway through Christmas season. Congratulations to everyone who's made it this far. But now is when it's going to get really, really serious. You're not going to be able to go anywhere without hearing some sort of cheery tune on any form of music playing device. It doesn't matter if you don't change to any pop stations or whatever. If you put in, like, I don't know, your music player, it'll turn into Christmas music. It's going to happen.
Yeah, pretty much. I control the music at the store I work at. And I was like, I got to get into the spirit somehow. So I use Pandora for all my stations. So I was like, all right, well, there's one rock Christmas song that I always go to. And it's the Christopher Lee death metal album of Christmas songs. And I just made a Pandora station off of that. So you get Christopher Lee singing Silent Night and Jingle Hell.
Jingle Hell.
It's the best. He made it's only like 4 songs, and one of them's Frank Sinatra's My Way, but it's great.
That's kind of a Christmas song.
It's kind of. Look, I'm surprised Pandora was able to make a whole station out of it, because it's mostly just Christmas songs, done by various rock bands and things like that. But they got all 4 of those Christopher Lee ones in there. Usually in an 11-hour shift, I probably hear them 15 times a piece by the end of the day, because they really replay them a lot. But it's good. Gives people a little bit of break. No Mariah Carey. She doesn't show up on there.
Mm-hmm. I remember giving Pandora a try when I was like 15 or something like that. And going in like, okay, let's try. Yeah, I'll look something up, and then, it'll make a station based off of this. And then it's like, okay, here's a Linkin Park song because you asked for one, and here's a band that's like Linkin Park, and I was immediately like, no, I don't like this. Turn it off. Never used it again. I was like, no, don't like this.
I can't do this. I wanted more Linkin Park. I just wanted to listen to Linkin Park all day.
Listen, you have to understand.
I have a weird relationship with my Pandora account because so my favorite band's the Foo Fighters, so I made a Foo Fighters station. And at some point, a Linkin Park song played on it, and I thumbs it up. So now it's like half Linkin Park, half Foo Fighters. Yeah. So there is a cross section between the two of those, which is like early 2000s rock music. Sometimes hard rock, sometimes alt rock, sometimes like fucking new metal bullshit. Let's just say Puddle of Mud has played on my station before. But at some random point, the song Memory by Sugar Cult played. And
I don't know what that is. But
I only know it because it was on the Burnout soundtrack. One of them, I think like Burnout 3 or something like that. It is not a particularly great song, but I love that song. I thumbs it up, and now all of my station is mid-2000s pop punk now. Ocean Avenue's playing every time. Fucking Good Charlotte. It's all there. It's all in its glory, I guess. It's
I've probably heard the song at some point before, but it sounds like every song of that era. So.
Oh yeah, it's not a great song, but it is a song that for some reason makes me very nostalgic for something I did not feel nostalgia for whatsoever. And every time like I thumbs up one song, it completely shifts the way my Pandora station goes. There's like a long period of time where I'm like, am I okay with this? I was happy with things before. Do I like change? And then I find out you just have to thumbs down every Good Charlotte song that comes on, and eventually you get back to an even keel. You start getting back into a balanced level.
This has been Mastering Your Pandora Station with Chris.
Yeah.
And so now that you've been listening to this, it sounds like you're interested in us talking about random nonsense. So let's talk about manga. That's like random nonsense.
It's random, and it is nonsense.
Yeah. We have an interesting blend of stuff this week. I think that there's a lot of really good manga to talk about, and some other things too. So I think that we'll just get into it. We're going to start things off with My Hero Academia, chapter number 335, Zygotes. So, for my money, this one aspect of this chapter is probably the weirdest thing featured in the manga this week. So, All Might is featured on the cover of this chapter.
Mm-hmm.
He's holding an egg in his hand. Is this symbolic? Yes. No, it's not even symbolic. It tells you what the symbolism is. Like,
yeah. Well, what I love is this probably is not as much of a thing in the East, but in Western media, just because of Always Sunny and things like that, I just saw countless "May I offer you an egg" in these trying times, or egg, Danny DeVito memes and shit like that to this.
Or this is your brain on drugs. Yeah. So
not enough Billy Hatcher and the giant egg memes, though. I feel like that poor kid is never gonna catch his due time in the sun.
It's completely lost on me. So yeah, there you
no,
go.
Everyone remembers Billy Hatcher and the giant egg. He's Sega's 17th most popular franchise.
Yep, I have.
The other 15 are Yakuza and Sonic franchises, just over and over again. They all are different. Like Sonic Racing's a different thing. Shadow's a different thing.
Let's see. What did I have on Sega Genesis?
Well, this was GameCube. This was after Sega stopped being in the console games, and they just had to make video games.
I didn't have a GameCube, so I was too busy playing Ninja Gaiden. Okay.
That's fair. You probably made the better choice.
Hey, come on, Ninja Game. It's got Ryu from Dead or Alive. You don't know who Ryu from Dead or Alive is? He's one of the ones without boobs.
I was gonna say, if somebody's like Dead or Alive, I'll check that franchise out, and then I'll judge you based off of what I find. Like, no, don't look at it now.
So we begin this chapter proper of My Hero, where the previous chapter left off, with All Might going to go and talk to Deku and Todoroki and Bakugo, and as it turns out, the entire rest of Class 1A. They just weren't important enough to make an appearance in the previous panel. So, we basically get the very natural dialogue from Deku that's, wait, so Star dealt lasting damage to Shigaraki to let us know how much has been exposited to them already in the midst of this conversation. So it's a nice jumping on point to let you know, yes, the kids all know the stuff that we explained to other people last time. Actually, it might have been better to have All Might explaining it to the kids as opposed to random dudes talking to the pro heroes. But anyway, All Might says that from their data analysis, Shigaraki stole New Order. It broke apart a bunch of his quirks. Evidence suggests the New Order ravaged a considerable number of the quirks held in his massive library. It's a good thing that we had that whole thing set up about the Jets that, like, oh yeah, they analyze quirks. Otherwise, like, how could you tell that? How do you know if someone's quirk is gone or not? You just like, yeah, I don't know. He doesn't look like he can shoot fireballs anymore because he hasn't shot any fireballs at me lately.
I look in my eyes, I see a man that doesn't have elastic powers anymore. Like, okay.
Well, that's very judgmental of you, just because it's accurate.
His astral projections or his powers are gone. Look at his fingernails.
I don't know. It strikes me as very weird that we have to have this whole thing. It's like, well, we know about this because there were special machines in the Jets. I don't know.
It's for our sake as an audience so that we can be like, okay, Shigaraki lost some powers, and the characters can know it as well.
Yes, exactly. Speaking of the other characters, look, it's Jiro and Momo. I didn't know they were here last time. And now they've got lines.
Yeah.
They just kind of say some stuff that anyone could say, though.
What are you talking about? I know it's a Jiro line because she doesn't finish it, like her trademark character trait.
Yeah. She
starts it, and then Yorozu just comes in and is like, I can do this better than you, and just finishes the line for her.
Listen, I'm telling you, there are dozens of people out there who are like, they finish each other's sentences. My best ship. So, people are looking for villains. Thanks for the splash page of a bunch of heroes that we haven't seen in a while. Yay. Look, it's Beckham.
Yeah, and Gang Orca is the best. Question. Can you I mean, I know the answer is yes. Have you seen people ship two characters who are in the same series, but have never, in any way, shape, or form, interacted with one another before? Like never, not even been in the same room. Like two characters who were like you, the mayor from the town in Buggy's Land in One Piece, and then like Wiper from Skypiea. You're like, I'm gonna ship these two characters together. They were never at any point in time anywhere near each other.
I'm trying to think of a good example from My Hero. Miruko and Hawks get shipped together quite a bit, I think.
But those are still. But we know those characters have been near each other because well, and also that they're the top 10 bro heroes, so they presumably would have spent time. I'm looking for characters from the same series, so like not cross franchise shipping, but two characters who just would not have ever met getting shipped, like Gentleman and Magne. Like two characters. Okay.
When at the end of Naruto, Kiba got hooked up with the cat girl.
I guess that makes sense. That's a canon version of it happening.
Like I mean the short answer is yes.
Yeah. As I said, I know it's possible. It's just in my mind. I was like, does it happen?
Like I'm going to like log off and I'm going to like randomly look up some stuff and just to like, I don't know, futz around Archive of Our Own or something like that. And I'm going to find a bunch of examples. That's just that I can't think of any in particular right now because I'm kind of narrowing my focus a little bit too much.
Nah, that's fair.
That's fair. So we get that. And then All Might says like, yeah, so All For One has suffered all this setback. But we don't know what he's planning to do next, so whether we find him or he comes to us, we're going to have a big ol' fight. And here's what you're up against. Hey, did you remember who these villains were? Well, here they are again. We just kind of get a reminder of who the villains are, which is
it's
weird.
I guess it's to establish the predominant players. It's to say, hey, these four are very important. There's 6 high-end Nomu, and then there's an army of essentially like blast characters and shit like that, like these characters who are like, I don't want to call them mooks necessarily, but I mean,
by comparison.
Yeah, I mean it's Skeptic and a bunch of characters who I think were probably part of Liberation Division sub-lieutenant bullshit or whatever.
Right. Remember when we got
one of those guys is literally just a piece, like a stick of butter that's melting that has a fucking Ninja Turtles headband wrapped around his head. So
I don't actually want to be here, guys.
I'm in a lot of pain. Can someone kill me?
Whenever we get together for these meetings, because we're crowded together, the room temperature goes up and I start to droop. And if I stay at room temperature for too long, eventually my brain, you could just put your fist through it.
I don't have like special skills. My power is I can mold my hand into different shapes. It's not that useful. I don't know why I'm here.
Well, we have a projector, but we don't have any visuals. Shadow puppeteer!
Whoa. Why does it sound like it's farting when you do it? It's like, because I'm made of butter.
Shut up. We've got plenty of bread-based snacks that we need your help for. He's just rubbing it on his head.
Oh, that hurts. I don't get that back.
You're literally misshaping my skull.
Couldn't you at least do my hands? I can mold into something else.
Also, I feel a little bit bad for like Mr. Compress and Spinner because they're like the only members of the League of Villains who don't get individually named.
Well, Mr. Compress is arrested, isn't he?
No, he's still out there, I think.
I thought he got arrested. I thought he's alive, but I thought he got taken. I didn't think they grabbed him. Spinner, though, is great because they didn't.
Spinner, yeah.
They made a great tale recently, didn't they? They're like, yes, the man who spinners sings all of our tales or some shit like that.
He's literally like got posters of his face everywhere. So yeah, you'd think that if he were going to be brought up in this point at any point, it would be after that. But oh well. Yeah. Also, there are still 6 near high-end Nomu that will, I'm sure, eventually come up whenever there need to be some kind of intimidating but faceless people to fight. So,
Nick, who will, when all the characters come to attack 1A, who will a clump of characters that include most of the female characters possibly fight? If not nameless high-end Nomu.
Yeah.
Yaoyorozu and Kamishita. You guys take down one of these guys.
Okay. I like how you combine two names there.
I couldn't remember either character's names, so I just slammed them together.
Oh man, I'm sure that none of the less important female characters from 1A are going to at all figure into this chapter. So, also Shoji gets a line, which is even more surprising than Yaoyorozu and Jiro. Also, it just says something very generic. Anyway, All Might says, if you hope to protect all that you hold dear to you, you must prepare yourselves. And Bakugo's like, yeah, well, fuck off. We've been doing that. And everyone just kind of establishes, we've been training. We're stronger now. Ojiro's just like, check out my six-pack. And Mineta is like, why are you taking your shirt off? Which is, I mean, he did read my mind and just say what I was thinking too, because he looks like he's taking his shirt off in the middle of this conversation.
Yeah.
Tokoyami says something kind of, in character for him, and then Ashido just kind of echoes him while pouting. So, okay. Bakugo is yelling something in the background while not speaking words. That's what his mouth is doing. And then Deku says, yeah, Kaiju and the others are going to spar with me. And it's to help me, finish completing One for All. And Bakugo says, I never said that I was going to do that at all. It's good that they're friends, But it sounds like basically they are going to spar. And he's like, yeah, I just want to see how strong I am. Fuck your stupid thing. So Todoroki's hand is very big. It's very large and thick for some reason in this one panel.
Hey, that's what the ladies like.
Okay, so, and then Kirishima says, don't forget to beat the snot out of me too. And then he goes on to say, after Sarah's like, oh, you just like being the resident punching bag, he says, I just need to take some good poundings if I ever want to get harder. So Kirishima's quirk is that he hardens his body, and he is a defensive wall. So he's trying to get stronger by having people attack him. There is no need at all.
He just likes being abused.
To read it all into the very, very, very open language choice that is made here. Maybe it was on purpose,
It has to. I think of there's the poor fucking team that has to translate Witch Watch every fucking week, which not only has a lot of Japanese puns, but has so much goddamn text to translate every fucking week. I have to assume because now that's my standard. Now I'm like, oh yeah, you have to translate like 49 paragraphs a page now, right? Like, no, some people don't, and like they get more time to be like, how do I want to phrase this to really just chef's kiss the entire audience,
So, let's talk about word choices some more here.
Okay.
All Might looks upon the students. He's very happy about, the progress that they've made, the confidence they're showing, the fact that they're already working this and stuff. And he says to himself, the zygotes I met that day have long since hatched. Who calls them zygotes?
Yeah, that was what I thought. I was like, what fucking person will
just call them eggs?
Eggs, tadpoles. There's got to be some other word of like a young infant stage thing.
Bean sprouts.
Yeah,
like,
something.
It's such a weird, awkward choice. He sounds like a robot.
I have learned, or he just learned that word today, and he was like, yes, an appropriate time to use zygotes.
I have defeated you, word of the day calendar. Ha!
It's him hanging out with Fat Gum afterwards, like having lunch, and he's just like they just finished a conversation about a movie. He's like, "Oh, I was just thinking, by the way, about my zygotes have long since hatched," referring to the students at the school. In fact, I was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Like the zygotes, they've hatched. He's like, "Is this like some fucking gag? Why are you talking like this?"
Zygotes hatch? They have. Do you think zygotes have shells?
What are you referring to? Why are you talking like this? I just, the zygotes. You know what a zygote is, right? Because I do. This is on my calendar.
Okay, well, I think I might have learned some things about you, All Might, but it's not what you wanted me to learn. Anyway, so, he also thinks to himself that All For One made a foolish move by picking on Class 1A and forcing them to step up, because they have, and now they're going to be standing up against him. And he's like, yeah, they're going to show you what. Yay. Meanwhile, Shigaraki's doing well. He is in one of the cave hideouts somewhere, and he's just writhing, going, arg, on the ground. We're going to call him Shigaraki in this point because the OG All For One is in the cave.
I was gonna say there's a physical version of All For One in the area now.
Yes, who is referring to Shigaraki as his other self still, but he's like, yeah, your quirk factors are just really worn after all of that shit that happened inside your own body. Shigaraki's taking this well. He says he's going to kill everyone. He hates everyone. And he says, as long as a single person still remembers All Might's stupid face, I'll never know peace from this torment. So, All For One's like, oh, wow, that whole thing where my vessel nearly got blown up really worked out for me. Because now he's acting a lot more like me. He shifted that absurd hatred towards All Might, which is like me. Cool. Everything's coming up me. So... literally, because look, he's coming at me right now. Yeah. And then All For One says, New Order refused to be stolen, but we've cleared away our most formidable obstacle, so let that light in your heart. There is no sense dwelling on a single foiled plot. I'm sorry to have to do this after all your prepping. The rest of you will need to remain on standby for longer. And Dobby's like, no, I'm bored now. I want to kill my dad. But All For One says, you and I have much in common, but let me tell you in how we differ. When I find myself with a goal, I'm sure to plan out a number of routes to the goal, shall we say. To be exact, I weave plots years or even decades prior so that I may employ a viable route when the time comes. A route that inevitably achieves my end. And we see this envisioned as, like, the Shadow the Hedgehog game branching routes that you can take. Say, oh, I could go this way and this way and this way and this way. It's like, all these plans and all of these things. I've got so much stuff going on at once, you see.
Yes.
Which is why, when I resurrect a plot point that has not been spoken of for literally years, I'll have you know, I've been thinking about it this whole time.
Nick, I'm excited about this because this plot line coming back gives me hope. Hope that Jin is indeed coming back in One Piece. Because if this can happen, anything's on the table, baby.
So, shining out from the horizon, off in the distance, through the cave, through the woods, coming from UA, there is a beacon. And All For One says, now the advent of my perfected vessel is delayed, and UA has welcomed Izuku Midoriya back into its sturdy walls. But I have, that you lack, Toya, are friends to spare. And there's a shot of Hagakure. Presumably, I'm not, look, I want to draw everyone's attention back a couple years to when there was that very ominous shot of Aoyama gazing through Deku's bedroom window, looking evil, and then it turned out he left him some fucking cheese. this seems to suggest that the long unspoken of spy plot, where someone within 1A or one of the teachers at UA was a spy working in tandem with All for One, is actually Hagakure. I am not 100% convinced of that, but if it is, it's not really that bizarre to me to hear it. We talked about this a bit on the day that the chapter came out on the Discord server, and it's just kind of the thing that you can have a twist like this in terms of a plot development that like is alluded to, and then it's like, oh, who is the blah blah blah, and then when that reveal happens, sometimes it's very good to have something that makes perfect sense. Back in the day when Toby was Obito, yes, it was, we made fun of it. It was predictable, but it made sense, and everything fit, and it played into the developments that involved Toby beyond that, because then you had all the history between Obito and Kakashi that you could draw on. Of course, Obito was new Uchiha, so there was history there as well. It worked out in a lot of ways. Hagakure has just kind of been not doing anything of note for 334 chapters.
Is she the least relevant member of Class 1A?
Until now.
Well, excluding this point, it was she before this. If you think of chapter 334, was she the least relevant member? Because they're competitors.
She'd be like 18 or 19, if not 20.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you could argue like maybe like
Ojiro or
yeah. Like Ojiro had a couple of things happen, early on. He had some stuff happen where like, oh, he was the guy who told Deku about the brainwashing thing. There was, you can't even say Sato, because Sato has stuff you could point to. Be like, I know things about him. He cooks. So yeah, it's
someone did bring up that their license exam, where I forget who she was partnered up with, but it was against Snipe, and Snipe figured out who she was because like her breast brushed up against him and made a loud tangible sound, and I was like, I don't remember that, but that does sound 100% accurate.
Yeah, like, I'm not going to say that this isn't going to be good. I just think that, and also, as some people have dug out, there have been people who have had reasons to believe that this is going to be the case beyond just, well, she's invisible, she'd be a great spy, kind of thing, which are like, she wasn't in class on the day that the League of Villains attacked and first showed up. She was the one who suggested that they go to the mall, which was when Shigaraki threatened Deku. So there have been little bits and pieces here and there, but it's been years since those things happened. And as far as we can tell from this point, it doesn't seem like the spy has been of any relevance since then. So
if it was like an ongoing plot thing, sure. But as you said, like it was brought up in one conversation like 6 years ago. Hey, there could be a spy in the school or a traitor in the school. And then like it hasn't really come up since then. So, it is one of those things of like on the back burner, which I think for fans of My Hero, maybe this is a bit more interesting, enjoyable. As someone like me who kind of goes along with the flow, I'm like, all right. I'll be honest. The thought I had more so was I was like, ooh, another female character to be maybe important for one volume and then maybe get killed off or removed in some way at the end of it to be eliminated from the story because you're not actually significant to the long-term scope of this.
Yeah. I guess what I'm ultimately saying is I don't have a lot of reasons to be excited about this, but I will wait and see where it goes.
Yeah, so. It could be very interesting.
But hey, that's the biggest thing that happened to My Hero. We'll talk about it more next week, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Undead Unluck.
Let's talk about Undead Unluck, Nick, number 89, round 3. Heaven or hell, let's rock. Spring ain't doing so hot. He's just screaming, "Oh God, please don't! I don't want to kill anymore." And Billy notes this is the third time now that God has forcibly intervened. It seems that Unluck has earned much of God's ire. So Spring shoots out his core, the little tiny face version of him that we saw in the flashback, and begs Fuko to kill him, saying, You've got to do this. So she grabs the head. It's great because Billy walks straight up and takes out his gun and tries to just blast it. He shoots like 3 bullets, and Spring's core is like, "Sorry, no, that was a good call, but even if I'm in a weakened state, it still has the rule you can't attack me. You're turned into a cherry blossom tree." So it's just a casual shot of Billy cutting off his arm before it turns into a cherry tree again. Damn it, that would have been really convenient. But Spring explains, look, since you're the one who has accepted the game, you are the person that's tasked to kill me. It has to be you. So for round 3, the last round, these dice are going to serve in our game. The dice we first saw Spring use way back at the introduction of the character. He says, there isn't much time. All of you are going to turn to cherry trees. However, like this game is going to help end it as quickly as possible. This is an even 50-50 chance game. Guess right, you live. Wrong, and you die. Excuse how ugly I am, but before the match begins, bestow upon me. And Fuko kisses Spring on the forehead as Spring's finishing his sentiment. And you can see Spring close his eyes and cry and just say, I owe you my thanks, as he gets returned to the main body. And it's like, all right, Undead Unluck. In this narrow gambling hall, I shall sit and wait. And we got Kaiju Spring now, because it's as tall as the city. This is basically a Power Rangers fight now. So they're like, hey, this is probably the true phase 3 of Spring, now that he's this giant. And we see Spring now fully mind control, walking through the city saying, this scenery is droll. Slams his foot into the floor, and his like buildings are all around it. And as he lifts his foot up, all of it has turned into cherry trees. And it's like, oh, he could turn everything into cherry trees now. So his abilities have evolved. So it's like, all right, let's just gonna have to do it. And he looks around, say, no, this won't do. All of it has to go. I shall turn everything into cherry trees. And we see what looks like a city a sizable distance away. Everyone gets turned into cherry trees because there's just this, cloud of cherry blossoms flies through it. We get the big 2-page introduction, Spring, Phase 3. So Billy's like, well, this sucks because you're dead no matter what once you get in there. It's just not gonna. We shouldn't have accepted this quest from the very beginning. It was a mistake. And Fuko says, no, there's still a way.
Negative Nancy.
Yeah. She's like,
it was pointless for us to bother with this.
Billy's like, weren't you listening? All attacks are considered interference. And Fuko says, yes, attacks. But the phenomena caused by my unluck reach Spring. They're not considered attacks. So if we can get close to him and cause all sorts of unluck around him, then we make a path to his core and send Fuko inside, and then Fuko can win the game. That'll be easy. Billy's like, how the fuck do you think you're getting close to him? All of our abilities don't work. And Andy's like, yeah, not on him directly, but what if we cheat? He's like, what if everything gets aimed at me instead, and because I'm undead and it'll go through me, then all the attacks will go and attack Spring. And they're like, does that work? And he's like, yes. It's how negator abilities work. It's all about how we interpret them and taking foolish, death-defying risks to see who comes out on top. Ain't that right, you bunch of negating lugs? And we get a 2-page spread of all the other negators who are involved in this conflict so far, flying down from the ceiling. I guess the card game is over, so they're all just right here now. And Andy ends the chapter by saying, now let's make like negators and negate this guy's rules.
Yeah, it's a cool 2-page spread of everyone flying through the air and stuff. And hey, it looks like we're coming to the big finish for this arc.
Yep.
I really like the relationship that is developed between Spring and Fuko during all of this, that she kind of draws out more and more of his sentimental side.
Mm-hmm.
And I really did kind of get the feeling when Spring was crying after she kissed him that like he knew that this was going to end with one of the two of them dying. So I don't think a happy ending is coming to this.
No.
It seems like we're gonna have a bad time at the end of things. So
maybe this time it'll all work out. Maybe they can have one UMA that... well, they do have Burn and Spoil that hang around, so maybe.
yeah.
Although those are ones you have to capture, so I think it's different. I guess they did capture Autumn, so Autumn can hang around. That fucking nerd. That big book nerd.
Spring's way cooler.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I guess we'll move on from there then, because we've got to talk a bit about. We just talked about Kaiju though. Do we talk about more?
We
Kaiju?
talk about more Kaiju.
Oh, okay. Kaiju number 8. It's chapter 50. Has it really already been 50 chapters? Again, I think that we've kind of just been like sleepwalking through the last dozen or so.
Yeah, a lot of it's kind of blended together. This last like long arc.
Isao is in trouble because Kaiju number 9 is trying to take his Kaiju power weapon thing. And he's not doing so well. He's getting the shit kicked out of him. Or punched out of him, I guess. Isao starts talking to... Ooh. Have we met him before? Some operator scientist guy. He's wearing a lab coat.
Mm-hmm. He seems very official.
Yes.
So I deign to trust him.
So Isao says, like, hey, because the guy says, like, listen, you've got to get evacuated as well. And he's like, no, that this thing is just going to track me down. It has that ability. You're the one who's got to get out of here. But the guy just like, I have a laptop, and my job is to aid you in victory, so I'm going to stay with you until the end. And he sounds like, all right, fucking okay.
All right, nerd. Get over yourself.
Yeah, my job is to be a nerd. Look at my lab coat. He powers up, and the scientist guy is like, I'm here to exposit about how strong Isao's power is. It's like a Dai Kaiju emerging, but in human form. And Isao's body is kind of like trembling and crackling with energy. And he unleashes a big old punch on Kaiju number 9, which causes them to turn into a giant atom somehow. I don't know. There's like the paths surrounding them. The force is incredibly tremendous, but immediately as Isao punches him, the gauntlet on his arm starts to crack apart, and it still hasn't finished off Kaiju number 9, who's just like, oh yeah, it's good. Yeah, this is power worthy of being my own. But Isao keeps on coming. He does a big-ass uppercut to the gut, and then keeps following up with more blasts. The impact completely breaks apart Kaiju number 9's head, which then just starts to regenerate while he keeps talking before his head has come back. And he just punches and punches and punches and punches. And so the scientist keeps on helping out Isao so that he can put out more power. And Isao's like, oh my god, this guy's really, really strong. But it's not just that. Each strike I make is hitting me with a hard realization. I've grown weak. My power is a mere shadow of its former glory back when I stood by your side. Thinking about his wife. And
that's when the assistant comes in on the comm. Are you thinking about your dead wife? Because she was killed by a kaiju, like the one you're fighting.
And then we took everything out of it, and we made it into an eye thing. Am I distracting you? I don't mean to. It's just that I'm sharing important information that you should already be aware of.
About your dead wife.
Who's dead.
She's very dead.
Isao takes a hit to the gut. His power drops even more. And he's just getting more and more pressure put on him. He's having to endure more and more blows. The scientist guy's like, I keep hitting keys. but it's not helping. So
I've opened up 7 Reddit tabs and I still can't stop this guy from killing you.
Isao says, "We're going to beat it, Kurusu," which I guess is the scientist guy's name.
Oh, everyone remembers him.
Yeah, you know. But he says, "I'll get killed if I go on the defensive. Route my remaining circuits towards offense and set them to max output." And his gauntlets go clack, 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 clack. And Kurusu says, "You'll sustain too much damage. You'll never fight again." And Isao's like, "Yeah, okay." I mean, I'm on the verge of dying right now. I think I'll take my chances.
I'm not that interested.
Plus, he also brings up the point that the Defense Force has that crop of new talent. It's up to them to be taking things on. And also, he has just established to himself that he's grown weaker, so he doesn't really care if he can fight again anymore. So he just says to himself, for this one moment in this one battle, I'm content with putting my life on the line to eradicate number 9. Just like what you did back then against number 6. I'm definitely going to die. Or am I? We keep on teasing this point. Am I going to die or not? Kaiju number 9 punches him in the back of the head.
Hey, you're dead!
We get a flashback at this moment to, I believe, the night after Kikoru mentioned to her mom that she wanted to join the Defense Force and become her protector. And he's always just like, yeah, I never thought that she would actually suggest that herself, but it's only natural if you're born into this family, so whatever. But his wife says, I can't help but feel a bit conflicted. It's an extremely dangerous line of work after all. But if she really does choose to go down that path, I plan on hardening my heart to train her and instill her with the power to survive. Which means you'll have to take over, giving our little Kikoru lots of love and attention. Well, you didn't do that, did you?
He's like, what if you die, though, and I give her none of that, though? How about that?
I will give her what you planned on, but I'll forget about being a good parent.
I will give her no love. How about that? If I just do the inverse.
Okay. It's okay, though. I admitted in this moment where I might die. That makes me better, right?
Yeah, I'm the hero of the story again.
That's a bit awkward. And he just doesn't fall down from the giant fist punching into his back. He starts to stand up, and he says to himself, the least I can do is eliminate it with this strike. Eliminate this terrifying threat so that it never exists in that girl's future. And he delivers an absurdly powerful punch that starts to blow apart Kaiju number 9. It hits him so hard that his teeth start to fall out, even though he got punched in the gut, which is pretty cool. It is a fight chapter.
It is. You know, I'm trying to... It is cool. There are a lot of cool visuals. Like, the shot of him getting punched in the back of the head, like, scale-wise, seems crazy when you're like, but it's just to show just how powerful this thing is, that he looks small in comparison to this thing here. And, oh, there's this cool visual of, like, the monster getting blown up and some of its teeth are falling apart and things like that. I guess the scale has changed. Like, I remember liking Kaiju number 9 back when it was, like, kind of taunting and evil. It feels like it's just, like, kind of lost a little bit of that personality.
Oh, I'm big and strong.
Yeah. And I just, like, I'm just not particularly super invested in Kikoru's dad as a character. This isn't to say that I'm like, he doesn't work, he's bad. It's just, I'm not quite at a point where I'm super invested in him. So I don't get super, like, tensed up when he's doing something.
Maybe if we had, like, taken some of the time that was spent introducing us to Narumi to get to know him a bit better, to get to know the bad side of him and also some of the admirable side of him. He feels very basic at this point still, as we're getting this big, important, dramatic moment for him. So it's hard to connect with what he's going through and to decide whether or not, you know, he's... Yeah. I will say one good thing about this chapter, though. Kikoru, as a kid, had a doll of her mom, which was very cute.
Yeah. Hey, look. If my mom was a superhero, I'd want a doll of her.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty sweet.
Okay, guys. Let's talk about Nick's new favorite manga.
No, well, we're not getting to that.
No,
We gotta talk about
we got
Eden-
Eden Zero. Nick's
Nick's new favorite series, Eden Zero. The time skip happened. Nick turned on a dime. He loves this series now. Eden Zero, chapter 170. 3 years later. See, you always got to beat out One Piece because One Piece was 2 years later. This is 3
One
years.
Piece will never get to that 3 years later mark before us.
Yeah, time skip. It's the cosmic era. The caved cosmos.
Yes, we get to know all of our important characters in this chapter, which is why Zhao Mei is on the cover, because she did not show up in the chapter.
We're getting to see these characters, and you don't want to spoil anything ahead of time, you know. So you just give an elegant shot of a female character, you know. So they're in Decayed Cosmos, which I guess its gimmick is having a wacky checkered board pattern across everything.
Yeah,
that's like its thing.
Yeah, that is weird.
And we're over on the planet Swedes, which I guess is one giant Venice.
I was gonna say, with stuff like Foresta, the forest planet, and what was it, Sandra, the sand planet? I immediately, when I got to this part, I was just like, is this the planet of Swedes? Just a bunch of blonde people walking around.
Ernde, Vernde, Schwernde, are you here to stop the robot uprising? Oh, there's just 1,000 Swedish chefs walking around. All the vegetables come to life when they're around. So we see
planet ever.
It's the best. We see Shiki walking around, and he's like, "Hey, I've arrived at the target location. No humans in sight." He looks around and sees that there's a bunch of robots, and they're all staring at him. Little Pino's there to say, "Master, I've detected hostile signals. I predict they will attack." And Pino's face is a little bit different.
And she's got like a hoodie kind of thing
like a
now.
jacket. And Shiki says, "Yeah, I know." And he lifts everyone into the air with his gravity powers. Like the whole street is lifted into the air. All the cars and people and furniture. And he says, "I won't hurt you. I know you're just under Ziggy's control." Pino. And she's like, "Understood. EMP activate." She activates her little EMP and knocks everyone out. And Shiki says, "Don't worry. We'll put you all back to normal." We cut over to the ship and see Hermit, who I guess also physically changed in some way, if you say so.
So this was the thing that actually confused me when I saw this, because she seems to be drawn in a way that is kind of maybe meant to make you think she looks somewhat more mature. And it's hard to tell if that is actually the case, or if it's just like the eye marks kind of slightly change the perception of what her face looks like, makes it look a little bit less youthful. But when I was looking at her, I thought, yeah, but she had the same appearance for 20 years before this.
Hey, you know what? She just had one of those days. She's like, "I'm going to change my whole look up. Everything's going to shift. I'm just going to do it." And you know what? To hell with everybody else. She explains that the core they're after is somewhere in that area, about 600 meters underground. So Shiki says, "Copy that." He stomps on the ground and blasts a hole straight down, and we see a full-page spread of the captain of the Eden Zero, Shiki Grandbell. And I will say this. In this chapter, where we get a lot of quote-unquote updates, Shiki legitimately right here looks different and looks, I think, a lot better. He looks cooler. He does seem more mature. There is a certain gravity to him, pun somewhat intended, that gives him a little bit more gravitas. Now, that said, who knows? We could immediately lose all that mystique the first time someone makes a fart joke and his cheeks puff up and he looks exactly the same as he used to. But right now, he looks a lot cooler.
I think throughout this chapter, you can actually tell that Shiki has grown up a lot. And I think that is refreshing to see that, like, oh yeah, there was a time skip, and it's not just someone got a power boost. They actually changed as a person, because Shiki is a lot less grinning and happy. there are moments where he has friendly banter with people. You can tell, like, no, he's still the same person in there. He's just a little bit more restrained. And I think that is very effective.
Yeah. So he flies down with Pino. Pino's like, hey, there's enemies down there. He's like, can you knock them out with the EMP? And she says, nope, they're equipped with anti-EMP coating. He says, the hard way it is. And he just beats up a bunch of robots because he's like, these ones are loyal to Ziggy, so I don't feel bad about this. Punch, 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 smash. And he breaks a whole bunch of them. He is very cool now. And they get over to the core and they connect to it. And Hermit is like, good, Rebecca, you're up. And we cut to Rebecca's breasts.
We were doing so well with the first one. And then it's just like, how do we demonstrate that Rebecca has changed? Well,
I have to assume her breasts got bigger. I don't know. It would seem crazy to zoom in on a shot of her boobs if that didn't change. But at the same time, she looks exactly identical to what she did pre-time skip. I suppose her hair... Yeah. I suppose her hair is slightly different. Like, it's a little bit longer, maybe. We don't really get, like, a full, like, body shot. But it is, of course, necessary that we introduce her by showing off her breasts, first and foremost. So, there you go.
It's not her feet.
It's not. And we also get a very important update to her. She is now the ultra-popular B-Cuber Rebecca Blueguard. So, in the time skip, similar to... Wasn't there a time skip in Fairy Tail where after the time skip, they were just like, Lucy is an accomplished author now, or a journalist, or something. Whatever her fucking goal was, something with writing. She is it now. She's written a bunch of books or something like that. And I was like, just gonna do that off screen, eh?
I mean, I guess that it has grown less and less important to her character, so you don't actually have to see her, like, accomplish it or anything.
But it's the only thing that's unique about her character. Otherwise, she's just every female character ever.
Yeah, well, there was all the stuff with her, like, starting to learn how to use Cat Leaper and stuff like that. That was the thing that seemed important about her.
I guess. It's just, that gave her something that was a character trait that wasn't what her power set was. So I appreciate it to some extent.
True.
I mean, maybe she'll still focus on it, because it does actually seem kind of intriguing, as we'll find out, that the Eden Zero is essentially, like, this known pirate organization. And a super famous YouTuber is a part of it, like, essentially, like, a second in command.
I'm sure that's part of her charm. Like,
she's constantly like, they're like, uh-oh, giant uprising happened on this planet today. Let's go see what Rebecca says during her fucking toaster unboxing video, or whatever bullshit she's doing.
She still has shitty videos. It's just that... really bad video ideas. It's just that in the background you can see, like, all these
space battles going. Like, she doesn't have the focus right. Like, the lighting's all off, and she's like something falls. She's like, shit, I gotta pick that up. She didn't cut it out of the video. You can just see giant space fights going on behind her.
Like, whenever she does the live streams and stuff, half of the chat room is stuff like, does she not understand that there is literally a galaxy fate-altering event going on behind her, and the other half of the chat is going, show tits!
Did your boobs get bigger? We cut over, because she completed it. She plugged in something, and Core 2 has been done. So, like, time to get to Core 3. And we cut over to Wise and Homura, who look the exact same as they did before.
I'll have you know, Weiss's jaw looks more square.
It's extremely pointed, but Weiss has a great line where he says, "My, I can't believe they're making us stop 3 calls at once now. That blasted Ziggy sure likes to make things difficult." Mind you, we can see in the panel directly above that, the scene that they're in, there is no conflict around them whatsoever. They only sent 2 people. It really sounds like these things you just have to walk up to and plug a USB into to stop.
All right, everyone. Everyone stand back so I can get my master hacking skills in. All right.
Phew, that was, core blimey, that was a big brutal one. Gonna have to take a real steam in the ether pools tonight to cleanse all that sweat off.
I think that it's a matter of literally they just have to carry the thing to connect Hermit in, and she does all the work, and that's so they're like, oh, it's so difficult.
We had to do 3 of them today. Before it was just one, so Shiki just went down. We all had to do something now.
Oh, give me some bangers and mash for you down there.
Crikeys. So Hermit's like, yep, good job. We saved the planet. We saved the whole planet. Let's go home. As they establish later, this is like, oh, it's the 17th planet they saved in 3 years. You're like, that seems like a low number now, considering how fucking easy apparently it is.
Well, how quickly they traveled from planet to planet too.
Yeah,
I think that we were falling for like 4 months.
Yeah, I'm really tickled by the idea of like them sitting there being like, how are we going to fix this? It has 2 different cores we have to get to. Are they heavily guarded? One is. The second one seems to be right out in the open.
Everyone just has these long debates, and Hermit's just like, oh my god, just the cans here.
Just plug it in. It has an arrow pointing to it that says where to plug it in.
No, Shiki. Put the side that says this side up. No, not in your mouth. Not in your mouth.
He's just slamming it upside down. He kept doing it until it breaks. He's like, mission aborted. We're gonna have to start all over. No, I gave you a backup.
Ziggy's claimed another of my friends.
She's like, no, I stopped putting googly eyes on them for that reason. We cut over to the Angel Feather where Victory is there. That's his name.
Hey.
And he's like, uprising on planet Swedes is quieting down, right? The Eden Zero beat us to it again. With Ziggy's influence growing everywhere, I don't know what we'd do without him. They're kind of like the better good guys than us at this point. And Justice is like, no, they're not. There goes to beat Ziggy. They would join forces with Elsie and achieve that end. There's no, quote, good in that. Yeah?
Also, they killed Creed? Is that
No, it's about Elsie. I can't. Who the hell are you talking about?
So we're very close to the end of the chapter.
Yes.
And so there are a couple of things that I want to say that this flashback does not show us yet, and I was convinced that we would see some indication of that whole Jesse told everyone that Homura seduced and murdered Creed come into play when they showed up. And no, they're talking about the crew of the Eden Zero, not a peep about it.
The only thing, because Victory brings up a good point where he's like, yeah, like, you know, they do these things, but they're saving people in the galaxy. Like, they're better good guys than us. Like, what's going on? And Ziggy's fucking just like, no, they're working with Elsie. And then he comes up with a bunch of bullshit afterwards. He's like, they're in an unregistered spaceship. And they even recruited some of Draken's lackeys. Yeah, Laguna, he's a part of the crew, so they're bad guys. And they have Ziggy's powers. I was like, is there like a fucking copyright on gravity powers? Because it's supposedly a rare power. We've seen 3 motherfuckers. It's the most common power we've seen people have in this fucking universe so far.
I don't know. Maybe there's some sort of like stereotype against people who have gravity powers because of Ziggy. Yeah,
I don't know. You could justify it, but it's just some of those things that I'm like, if this is supposed to make me think Justice sucks, it's working because he sounds like a fucking wiener in this scene. He's like, no, prayer councils decide he's a threat to the universe, you know?
Maybe he just needed a third thing to bring up, like to complain about them. And Shiki's got gravity powers.
The one that bothers me the most is they're in an unregistered spaceship. Like, who gives a fuck? Like, that's like the cop being like
a driver's license.
That's like the cop being like, Charles Manson's killed 7 people and he didn't update his registration last year. You're like, I don't think that fucking quantifies on his list of crimes right now.
Oh boy.
The prayer council met, and now this is no longer the boy we met 3 years ago. The Demon King Shiki Grandbell has been recognized as one of the Ayashimon 6 Galactica. The time to fight him is drawing near. And I'm very curious about this little plot point here. He's part of the Ayashimon 6 Galactica.
Yes.
There are 4 members previously.
Right.
Shiki's been added.
Yes.
Did they add another member, or did Hiro just say, fuck it, they're still called the Ayashimon 6 if there's only 5 of them?
Good question. It's a good question. Maybe we'll find out. Maybe there's a character who didn't get killed from a previous arc who is coming back to get, relevant again. Maybe there's just another person.
It's Orc, remember? From, oh god, what was the name of that group? I can't remember it was the group that was the underlings to Oceans, which was the fucking underlings to Shura, and you're like,
yeah. It could be one of them. Why not? One of Shura's people who very, very specifically made their escape at the end of that arc. Yeah. Another thing that actually does not come up that I was thinking about well before the Ayashimon Seis thing came up, because I still did not put much stock in either of those groups in terms of their importance. There was the whole thing about the 4 divine generals. So obviously Witch is dead now, and they kept on saying that, oh well, we need there to be a 4th
shining star.
Yeah, because otherwise the full function of the ship is not available, which is why Homura took up the position after Valkyrie they found out was dead. But now Witch is dead too. So I was thinking that they might actually bring up the point of like, well, maybe we can have someone else, fill that position as well. And if that is the case, we do not find out who that is. Partially because we don't see all the members of the Eden Zero. We don't see if they're all still part of the crew. We don't see if they've picked up any additional crew. We don't see if any of them have died, which kind of makes me want to see just like Moskoy's tombstone, like
just floating off in space.
Like no.
Turns out the button did nothing.
No mention of anything that that killed him or anything. We just see it in the background, and that is no explanation. So that's really all my thoughts.
Yeah,
on the
I like Shiki's design. At the end, I think it looks really bad. I don't know what the Demon King look is. That looks cartoonishly bad. But
it's a stupid artist rendering.
Yeah, they were like, what if he grows fucking horns? But they're like really thick horns, like really, really big ones.
Also, they have circuitry running through them.
Yeah, well, that's what's cool. He's like a cyber demon.
He's a D-machine.
Yeah. I guess they theoretically could make Ziggy one of the Ayashimon 6. I don't know. I really want them to not, and it's 5 of them, and they still call them the Ayashimon 6.
Right.
A group which, by the way, has no formal organization. They're just 6 random people. You can change the number whenever you want it.
Well, it's like the supernovas in One Piece.
Yeah, but they weren't called the 11 supernovas.
Okay, well,
I mean, to a certain extent, they do call them the Emperors, and there's 5 of them right now. I think they still, I don't know if they call them the 4 Emperors. I think they just call them the Emperors generally.
Was there a 5th?
Yeah, Luffy's the 5th now.
Oh, right, okay. They kind of, yeah. All right. So, let's talk about Ayashimon. It's chapter 3 of Ayashimon. I only ever take the juiciest bits. Sumaruo is being introduced to Kabukicho, which is the district where like all of the Ayashimon actually dwell and stuff. There's a lot of people who are secretly Ayashimon that, even regular people who come here and interact with them for various bits of business don't realize that they're actually Ayashimon in disguise. So Urara. So I think that's her name, right? Right? I got it right.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah,
you did it, Nick.
So she says, "Hey, don't go wandering off on your own, and don't talk with strangers. Just keep to yourself." And Maruo's like, "I've seen this place on TV. I know what to expect." And then they get to see the Kabukicho, and immediately he's just like, ah! He's overwhelmed by the bright lights, big city. All right, so okay, so he's like, why are there so many people? It's like a festival here. And Urara's like, okay, come on, you're acting like some weird bumpkin. Okay, so he says. Also, the place is almost like Disneyland, and Urara's like, Disneyland? Yeah, it's the second thing that a country bumpkin would say. All right, that's okay. So, but then she brings up, like, hey, this is the actual face of what Kabukicho is, and she brings up all the different people that, the Ayashimon that deal with stuff. We see, like, a guy who can't pay his debts, so an Ayashimon gangster, fucking eats him. Well, now he really can't pay his debts.
Yeah. That's fine, because you got a good meal out of it.
We see that a man has just been to see a lady of the night. Mm-hmm. And then said lady transforms and into, what do you call it?
Tanuki.
The Tanuki. And in fact, she was his shape-shifting ball sack.
Yeah, that didn't pick that up on the first time. Like, I was like, oh, it turns out she's the Tanuki. Until I was like, oh, wait, that's specifically returning to the open zipper. So, was there always a part of this lady that was, like, trailing off to, like, behind a curtain where this guy was just standing the whole time?
Oh, wow, your legs go all the way to... Whoa, what?
What's behind that?
What's that flap skin just...
No.
Anyway, it's the Pleasure District, and basically all of the different outlets in the Pleasure District are run by Ayashimon. Urara says, it's just like a manga, doesn't it excite you? So, then they're in a restaurant. There's a dude with a big old facial tattoo who is picking on a wussy-looking guy. He's like, you scrawny brat, you dissing me? And the guy's like, no. It's like, how is that not a diss? You threw garbage on us. And he's like, no. And Urara says, yes, there are lots of disputes between Ayashimon, of course. That's what's probably happening over there. That one was just dumb enough to try and pull one over on one of our own kind, the idiot. If you don't want to get disrespected like him, we'll need a base of operations. Okay. But Maruo's not really listening while she's explaining this stuff, and he's just reading his jump. And he just says, I'll leave all the thinky planny stuff to you. All I got to do is fight. And Urara's like, is that manga really that riveting? And Maruo says, you bet. I only had old ones at home. I read them until they fell apart. This is the first I've been able to read the newest issue. It's got this really stupid series in it called Ayashimon.
Aww.
I'm sorry. It's just like, I better say this right.
You got to get it in now while you can.
Yeah. And anyway, he's like reading that. He says, Tadashi Sato Sensei has a new manga out. Huh? Space Bear, ... It's not burning?
I didn't quite get that reference.
What this means.
Yeah, I didn't quite pick up on that reference. I'm probably very uneducated.
So, anyway, the wussy Ayashimon gets kicked out of his chair by the facial tattooed one. He's like, oh, please, no! And he says, when you deal with us and you shit the bed, you clean it the fuck up. I think. I don't know. Maybe he says other curse words that don't make as much sense. But he's like, oh, come on, you want to have an Aya grudge match with me? And everyone's like, okay, let's just ignore him. All the rules in town have been really loose lately, so that means I can kill you right here. And the guy gets so freaked out that he starts to revert to his natural Ayashimon form, which is very dark colored, and he has like a little drip curl thing coming out of his head. I'm sure that this is some sort of creature from Japanese spiritual folklore that has a very straightforward reference. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So, anyway, Maruo's like, should we like help that guy? And Maruo's like, the guy's probably some lackey for a gang. He probably came to Tokyo trying to make it big, but it's the survival of the fittest here. The strong devour the weak. And, you know, he's a really good mark. When he leaves, let's follow him, and then we'll take over his gang. Okay.
All right.
Maruo says, what, you want to take control of that guy's place? And Urara says, I just want the office. We're going to kick him out. Whenever I see something, when I eat it, I only ever take the juiciest bits. And this is demonstrated by her not finishing her ice cream thing. Well, she throws away the stem of the cherry. No one eats the stem.
I'm sorry. When does she eat a cherry? I'm missing.
But she eats a cherry right when she's saying he's the perfect mark.
Oh, yeah.
And then she throws away the stem. It's like, yeah, everyone does that. It's not. That's nothing special about you in terms of choosing to the juicy bits. Whatever.
I guess, yeah.
Maruo has a look on his face while he watches the guy getting beaten up. I don't know what it means, but he doesn't look happy. And then he walks over, seemingly kind of reluctantly, and Urara's like, hey, don't go over there. I didn't tell you to go fight that guy. But Urara says, well, you're going to take over his gang, right? So why don't we just freaking do it now? Hey, you, give us your office and I'll beat this guy up for you. And the guy is just kind of surprised and doesn't know what to make of this offer. So Tattoo Guy is like, oh, who the fuck are you? And then he changes into his Ayashimon form, which is covered in fire. His tattoo path becomes like a fire path, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. By the way, just to interrupt real quick, some people were theorizing the reason he steps in at that point is because as he's looking on, I'm sure that to him is pretty reminiscent of when he was a kid getting beat up by his dad.
It reminds me of when I was getting beat up by my dad, and then I beat him, and I was disappointed.
Yeah. Well, this kid doesn't read enough manga. He's not going to be strong.
So we get an introduction to the tattoo yokai Inokuma Hyudo, and an indication of like, hey, this is the kind of yokai that he is. But he throws a flaming punch at Maruo, and he just catches the fist, and he's like, oh wow, this guy's really got a really good punch. Okay, and then he's like, hey, elder sister, when you're saying the strong eat the weak, that's not hype at all. For me, it's way cooler for the strong to eat the stronger. Flame Tattoo Guy says, what the hell are you talking about? Diss me and you get dead. You the censors.
Yeah. The last character who had this was the Son Goku character from Build King. He had a monkey who would swear all the time, and he would have to speak up to make sure the monkey's swear words didn't get seen. So, it's not great pedigree. But I don't think this guy's supposed to be a major character either, so...
No, his face cracks apart completely so that he can launch a flame breath directly in Maruo's face. To which Maruo says, this is fire! Nice! And then he rips the door off of the nearby wall. It's a fire door, so it's good for blocking fire.
Mm-hmm.
And he holds it in front of the fire, and it acts as a shield. And they're like, oh my god, he just ripped the door off the wall. And Maruo's really excited that this guy is breathing fire. He's like, hey, and he had an attack name for it. It's just like a manga. That's so cool. Wait a minute, it's not cool. It's hot. Because he's got a steel door that he's holding, and he's pressing his hands against it while the fire heats it up. And it's hot, and it hurts. So Urara shouts out advice to him that he should use the sprinklers above him. She's just like, just tilt the door so that the flame will go up and hit the ceiling. And that'll set up, and he just jumps up and he punches the sprinkler. And he punches it so hard that it breaks the pipes in the ceiling, which causes the water to come down. So yeah, it worked out. So water falls down, and Urara's like, that's not what I meant. But Maruo's like, now we can just punch each other in a good old fist fight. And the flame Ayashimon says, bring it, you little f***. And then Urara's like, hey, Maruo, you can't beat him like this. We got to set up an official ritual duel, or there's no point to it. pull back and start again. Don't beat him. Don't you beat him. Which just pisses the flame tattoo Ayashimon off because like, what the hell? Is she dissing me? I don't think this guy has many character traits. It's just a feeling.
Yeah. He's got a cool design. That's all he needs.
He has a brief moment where he realizes that Maro has no ki or Ryatsu or chakra or magic or aura. So he's like, so there's no way a mortal human punch could hurt me, especially me. It's impossible. And then Maro's like, hey, I've got a name for my attack too. And I thought about it a bunch, like for years. I put all the best bits from the best fighting moves together and built the coolest attack name ever. So eat this. Ultimate final conquering destructo heavenly true. He punches the guy and he explodes. And his head goes flying off. And his arms are over there. It's goop from his back goes over there.
Splatters.
And Maro goes, huh? And the guy's body falls everywhere in bits and pieces. And Maro just goes, I didn't get to finish my attack name. And the Flame Ayashimon's head lands in a nearby box. He looks up at the guy who's manning the station and just goes, huh? And Urara and the guy that Maro saved stare in disbelief.
All right, Nick. You have had strong thoughts on Ayashimon chapters 1 and 2.
Yes.
Did this chapter change your mind whatsoever?
This chapter did nothing.
Okay.
Here's the thing. I did not, in any way, shape, or form, dislike this chapter. I thought that this was fine. But I have zero feeling towards it. It did not move the needle in any direction for me. So, here we are. And I had the very negative thoughts in chapters 1 and 2. I got very, very upset over the minor things last time. I just kind of like tuned out all the little things that I didn't like in this chapter. Like, I think that things that with Ayashimon, if there is a running gag in the chapter, it's not going to work for me. It just seems to be the case. Like, we had the exploding head last time, which I thought was horrible. And then we had the are they dissing me thing this time? Didn't really care for that. Still do not like Maro's this is just like a manga thing because it just will not stop getting brought up. And I think that the thing about this chapter that actually is kind of the most disappointing is that there's the big gag at the end that also didn't do anything for me. Like he has this really long attack name, but he finishes the fight too quickly for him to actually get it all out. All right, that's a joke that I'm sure would work if executed differently. For me, I don't know. Something about the way that this is done just doesn't do it for me.
That's fair. That is fair. I should note, I've been pretty quiet when it comes to Ayashimon. I didn't have much to say for the first 2 weeks, and I wanted to come out and say why. I'm dumb, and the first week I forgot to read it. So, like, like, the way I read manga is, like, I go through the app, so when new series comes in, I have to actually remind myself to read it, because otherwise I just click, like, continue reading when new chapters come up, that list updates. So the first week I was like, oh shit, we're about to record the podcast. I'll just scan through it real quick. All right, fine. I got it now. I got it. Now I forgot to read it the second week as well, because I didn't read it the first week, so it didn't pop into my keep reading list. So I was like, we'll just stay quiet here off to the side. I don't know much that.
Well, Nick rages himself
but I was like, Nick feels very strongly about this.
So it worked out pretty damn well for you for those 2 weeks. Like, all right, I'll just let Nick's hate carry the episode.
But then week 3, I was like, hey, fool me 6 times, it's on me. So this time I did read, and I was like, this series is great. It made me laugh. I don't know why. I really got tickled by the idea of her being like, yes, use the door to deflect the fire into it. And he's like, huh? And he just jumped up into the ceiling and punched. And I was like, yeah, he's a big dumb idiot. He got a chuckle out of me. I don't know.
I don't know. It's all the stuff that I grew to like about Mashle, about Denji from Chainsaw Man. It's just I don't know. It just doesn't connect with me. Something about the way that I think the art and the jokes carry each other. It doesn't come together into a grand sum for me. And I'm sure that people have pointed out to me, like, these are some of the stuff you like in other series. Like, yeah, it's true. Yes, you're right. It just
is,
doesn't work this for me.
But it also took you longer. Like, I mean, you could go back to the 3 chapters we first discussed Chainsaw Man. You didn't like it either, you know? Like, sometimes these things take time to build up.
Yeah, I like the first chapter of Chainsaw Man I think, and then after that I was just like, Denji's such a little asshole. Just doesn't care about anything except boobs. And this guy, yeah, he's an asshole. All he cares about is punching people.
Yeah.
Manga. You can relate to that.
So the big question, because we're running low on time, we've read 3 chapters of this now. Are we going to keep it in the recap?
I would prefer that we not.
So I would like to keep it in here, if only for the pedigree of the author, but we haven't gotten to our Hell's Paradise episode yet. So
True.
We haven't quite gotten to that point. I think this series is going to hang around. But it might not. Sometimes it peters out, Kishimoto and Shimabukuro also thought they were going to stay around in Jump, and they were much larger names in Jump. So,
well, it's a bit of a difference between the breadth of those two examples.
Yes. Yeah. But the idea of, like, those were people with long running Shonen Jump series, as opposed to what did Hell's Paradise run in, Ultra Jump or something like that?
Yeah, it was not weak Shonen Jump.
Yeah. So potentially maybe this doesn't stick around. I enjoy it. I would like to talk about it. But if you don't want to, it still has a home and monthly other recap. And should we decide, hey, this is hanging around, it's really picking up some steam, we can always reevaluate and move things.
Yeah, and knowing my track record, I'm sure then it'll be great. Because I'm so good at all of these things. Like, Undead Unluck is terrible. Chainsaw Man is terrible. I was so on the money with all those.
But then we fall in love with all the series that are doomed to die immediately, so you never know.
Yeah. Okay. That said, let's move on to our new series.
Yeah.
3 news, because it's the 3rd week. I didn't know there was going to be 3 new series in a row. I must have missed the announcement or something. I think I've just been so used to us only getting 2 at a time.
We've had 2 for the last 2 or... I think the last 2 serialization rounds have just been like 2.
So this was a bit of a surprise to me. Hey, do you like series about people with no naturally supernatural powers punching and defeating demons? Let's just call them demons. Look, I've got to learn so many different words for the same fucking thing of late, okay? Yokai, Ayashimon, Mononoke, hollows, spirits, and dragons.
These are all
werewolves.
Oh, those were different. Yeah, there you go.
Monsters, evil monsters. Low-powered dude hitting evil monsters. Oh boy, another one.
Yeah.
Look, Doron Dororon. I think I should win a medal for pronouncing it that well.
I'm actually very impressed.
So this is about a series in which, apparently only about 50 years ago, monsters called Mononoke began appearing and attacking humans, and they've killed a total of 4,049 people in the past year? Okay, that's a very specific number. There is this bug that has been coming around here.
It's right there. Ah! No, Nick! I was the wish bug.
Yeah, do you guys want to see it?
Oh, yeah, you fucking massacred that. I don't think the audience can see it because I think where I have it cuts off.
Wings are twitching. Hang on.
Oh, no.
I have to, sneak up in a minute and just wash my fucking hands. And the saga of Nick killing fucking bugs continues.
It's almost the running gag at this point.
You may be wondering, why don't bugs ever sneak into Chris's room while we're recording? I live in Florida. This just happens, okay?
Oh, they do too. I'm just pretty chill with it. I'm just like, I don't know, there's a lot of spiders around the house. Either you're gonna get eaten or we're just gonna chill and vibe, you know?
I mean, I literally wear a medic alert bracelet on my wrist because bugs nearly killed me when I was a kid. So, anyway.
There's not many good vibes with that.
Nah. I like ladybugs.
Aww. I like them too.
Mononoke are evil! I hate them! That's right. Mononoke. Oh, this one's cute, though. Anyway, that's the premise of the series. And we do get a 2-page color spread after this, introducing us to our main characters, including one that only briefly shows up in this chapter, but she's definitely going to be important, judging by her position on here. And hey, there's some kind of cool art, because the Mononoke that this guy just met, he wields him like a flame sword thing in this. That looks kind of cool.
And to clarify, this is by Gen Osuka, who is the author behind Golem Hearts, which is a series we very briefly talked about several years ago.
Yes. So we are introduced to our main character as he is visiting his mother's grave. And he's like, yeah, Mom, I just graduated from high school. I know that I got in all sorts of trouble because I kept on getting into fights, and there were other issues too, like how I'm not good at school stuff. But I graduated, and here's my diploma, and I brought you your favorite giant dorayaki from the Yagyudo shop. I bet that makes you happy. And I'm going to go and become a samurai, and I'm going to be a public servant, and you're going to be proud of me, Mom. And then a cat comes along to swipe the dorayaki that he left for his mom, and he snatches it, and he's like, hey, you little... And then he sees that the cat is pregnant. And he's like, all right, you can have it. So he's got a good heart because he did not kick that pregnant cat.
I don't know why that would have been the question to begin with at all.
He seemed like he was upset at it. Let's just see if he goes, hey!
Yeah, I know, but...
Going why you he's gonna do something to that cat.
The idea that if it wasn't a pregnant cat was like, were you gonna hurt that cat?
It's like the test to determine whether or not you're an android.
Oh, the fuck! You see a turtle on its back.
Yeah.
Am I a replicant or not? Like, no.
You see a pregnant cat stealing your food. What do you do? I pick up that cat and I kick it.
That sounds like a human response to me, fellow human, as like the panel on their face falls off and they have to slap it back on.
Oh no, a Mononoke has kidnapped a child. It's this monkey-ish looking demon, and it's kidnapped a child. And then the samurai that we saw on the 2-page spread before kills it with their sword, catches the kid, comforts it, and then we see that as the Mononoke's body fades, it's going Doron. So part of the title is, in fact, maybe all the title is, I guess, just the way that flames and spirit stuff make sounds in this series. Okay, maybe there's a thing about that I'm not aware of. But everyone who witnessed the attack and the save happen are like, hey, these Nagi forces are cool and awesome heroes and stuff. And we are introduced to the Izanagi Force is an anti-Mononoke special combat unit. They have triggers that let them dispatch the neighbors. Sorry, they have swords and powers that let them dispatch the Mononoke. And so Dora, our main character, is like, yeah, and I'm going to join the Izanagi Force. I'm going to be a samurai, and we're going to be co-workers, and we're going to save people together. Hey, he failed. Because turns out we do this thing where we take a sample of your blood and we can measure your potential supernatural energy level. And your supernatural energy level is 0.
What?
You'll never be a samurai.
What? But this is the protagonist of our series, Nick. He can't have no talent.
That's right. Kafka can't join the Kaiju Force. So...
Well,
Dora.
at least Lucky still knows how to play the piano. At least we've got that going for us.
Dora takes off his jacket and flexes and does some shadow boxing stuff, and he's like, "Look at how strong I am. I've never lost a fight. I can take out all those Mononoke." And someone just shoves him out of the way. It's a really big guy who's got a shirt that literally says "strongest" on it because this dude has no personality, presumably. He's like, "Get out of the way, small fry." And there's a line of people all waiting to take this blood sample test. I don't know why they're. Do they just all go in a line and each of them just like sits there after they've drawn their blood? You'd think there would be a much more efficient means of testing this.
I guess not. I don't know. Maybe it's dire times where you have to like immediately grab them afterwards, be like, you gotta start training to be a fucking whatever this is called agent.
Yes.
I was about to say an Ayashimon agent, but this series is very different from Ayashimon. You couldn't possibly compare them in any way, shape, or form.
None. So Dora grabs the guy by the wrist after he shoves him out of the way, and he's like, "Yeah, if you want to be a samurai and serve society, you should be more respectful of other people. So I'm gonna go line up again to retake the test, and you can come to the end of the line with me." And he just drags the much bigger guy off really, really easily. It is actually kind of a cool scene. But the guy who administered the test is like, "Yep, there's no retakes. You test your blood. It's no retakes." Yeah. Dora goes off. He's all disappointed. And he's looking around the town, and he sees little bits of damage from when various, demons. No, okay.
Can we just call them yokai and be done with it?
So from when they've attacked and stuff, and it makes him think about his mom, and he says to himself, I mean, the first time I thought about becoming a samurai, I was really just kind of running my mouth. And just like watching TV, sees a news report on samurai, and he's like, "Hey, Mom, maybe I should become a samurai, because I'm no good at school, I'm never going to graduate, but I'm a good fighter, so I could do it." And she got actually really serious and enthusiastic and said, "Hey, that's actually a really good idea. That'd be perfect for you. You've always been a real troublemaker, but as a samurai, you can protect people. We've got to graduate high school first." And so Dora's like, "Yeah, she really wanted that for me, and now she's going to be disappointed, because I can't do it." He kicks a rock in disappointment. The rock deflects off of a sign and hits him in the forehead. Our hero.
Bam!
So, he says, "Fine, I'll never kick you again, rock." If that rock comes back and is like his strongest ally or something like that, then that'll be great. Great foreshadowing. That's the way, yeah.
Yeah, I hope it shows up in the next 15 chapters, or it's not showing up.
That little rock. So, Dora hears a kid in trouble. Oh no, there is a Mononoke after her. And she's running down the stairs away from danger. There is a Mononoke on an upper floor who's calling for his chewy chewy, which is, he wants to eat her and stuff. And she says, "There's a Mononoke up there." And Dora is like, "Well, we've got to get out of here." But she says, "No, wait, my rescuer is still up there." And Dora's like, "Okay, well, I'll save them. You go down and have someone call the samurai, okay?" And she runs off while he goes up to confront the Mononoke and help out the person who rescued the girl. And the rescuer was another Mononoke. It's the little Mononoke from the beginning of the series when we got that little in media res bit. It's a little snake-like guy with the determined eye. So Migi starts fighting with the Mononoke, and he says, "I won't let you do bad things." Actually, he's nothing like Migi in terms of personality, but so. And so the Mononoke is benevolent, and it's apparently, as we find out later, some sort of vegetarian, and also can like shapeshift and stuff. The bigger Mononoke throws him around. He's got no power. Look, so around this point is when I lost interest in this. Because, look, we had some nice things to say about Gollum Hearts, right?
Sure. I don't really remember the series too well, but I remember it having a little bit of an emotional core to it. It was nice.
There you go. That's kind of sums up the thing, is that, yes, there were nice little bits to it, but what it was at its core was not incredibly appealing and entertaining and interesting. There's just kind of the details and the surrounding stuff that is kind of cool. And that's kind of the thing that's going on here with Dora. And I forget his name. So the little Mononoke. So it's just like, okay, there's a fight scene that breaks out here. They're trying to run away. They're trying to fight it. Eventually, they're kind of like pushed into a corner. As Dora's like, okay, well, we need to be able to work together in order to actually beat this thing because I don't have any strength in terms of stuff that can actually hurt this Mononoke because I can't actually use supernatural attacks against it. They decide to work together because the Mononoke is like, can we make this world happy and kind? And Dora's like, yeah. And oh man, the Mononoke is gonna just fucking eat children at that playground over there. But then Dora comes in. He's turned the Mononoke into a giant sword, chops its hands off, and the Mononoke is like, all right, fine, but I've got energy hands. Ah! But the Mononoke is like, it's okay, you can slay it, I believe in you. And Dora's like, okay. And then he slashes the sword and he cuts the thing in half and kills it. Blood rains down everywhere. The Mononoke is killed, goes up in flames, and then Dora thinks back to his mom and she says to him, hey, a bunch of parents from your school came to my work today to complain that you'd hurt their children, but there were also a couple who came to thank me, saying that their kid was being bullied. You fight off 10 kids to protect one, huh? I think you'll make an awesome samurai. You'll do great things, and then everyone will know that my wonderful son is strong and kind. Oh, isn't that nice?
Sure.
The giant Mononoke has been defeated, and Dora thinks to himself, I didn't make it as a samurai, and I'm teaming up with the Mononoke, but maybe I'm making you just a little bit proud, right? And then he turns to the Mononoke and he's like, hey, do you have a name? And he's like, yeah, Kusanagi. Okay. They thank each other, and then Dora's like, hey, do you, eat people? And he's like, no. I eat weeds and stuff. So Dora's like, okay, let's go get some dorayaki. And the Mononoke is like, dorayaki? Like we're gonna grill you? And Dora's like, yeah, kids always teased me about that when I was little. It's a thing that I can't really appreciate the pun of. But, hey, it's a joke based on his name, and I do relate hard to being made fun of because of what your name was when you were a kid. Because children have no imaginations when it comes to naming things.
That's right. They used to call you Nick the Prick, didn't they?
Yes.
The elementary school kids.
They're just a bunch of 30s gangsters. Look at Nick the Prick over here.
Slick Nick the Prick coming down the chimney here, boys. Taking on the arches there. We're gonna be a wet biscuit, Daddy-o.
What are you guys saying?
We don't know either, see?
I'm just regurgitating things I saw on the television, on the tube, on the
telly.
On the schmuck box.
That's what my pa calls it, the schmuck box. And then he slaps me about the head. Go get me a pint of milk from the store for a nickel. He doesn't realize we're in 2021, so that nickel ain't buying a whole lots of milk, you see?
So this went from being supposedly about my childhood to being 2021.
No, you still go to the elementary school today, and kids, you don't know we're calling you Nick the Prick. You're just walking about, they're like, Nick the Prick! You're like, how do you know these words?
Very concerning.
How do you know me?
Is this place haunted? Girl Samurai has discovered the aftermath of the battle. They're gonna find out who used the lollipop thing. And then we end on Kusanagi and Dora eating together, and they're friends now, and they're gonna make a kind of nappy world. Yeah. Okay, here we are. We've got a new series about slaying demons and stuff. It's all right. It's all right.
So
okay.
Here's my thoughts on do. It is not necessarily that it's an Exorcist manga. I'm actually we got a break from them for a while. This series, in the politest way I could say, has small elements going for it that are nice. I don't feel like anything in it is necessarily inauthentic, and the art looks kind of nice at times. But otherwise, this series is aggressively mid in every single other tangible way. I don't look at this and I'm like, this is something special. I don't even look at it and say, this is something very entertaining. It's a lead who's like, I promised my dead mom that I was going to become the best samurai ever, and I have to kill all the yokai, but I don't have any talent, so I teamed up with a small monster to do it. And it's like, all right, that's like 3 tropes in one, and none of them are particularly interesting. So it's got a big uphill battle to climb. It's also, unfortunately, in the same slot, the same area as Ayashimon, which does have at least some measure of a pedigree behind it. So
whatever editor came up with, let's put these 2 weeks apart, should be fired. Like, that's just
I would almost assume conspiracy that they were like, this thing's gonna die, right? Or it was purely like, you two are just gonna have to compete and see which one comes out ahead. And I'm sorry, but I don't think it's gonna be this one.
Look, I like Doron Dororon better than Ayashimon because there are parts of it that I actually find charming in any way. But I will say, 100%, it is a far less exceptional series than Ayashimon. It stands out far less. It just does. So, also, it goes to show how little I was invested in actually analyzing this series, that when you were giving your review of it, I just honed in on the fact that you said aggressively mid, and I just kept on thinking about League of Legends. And I was like, I don't know enough about the meta to know which mid champions are actually aggressive.
It's gotta be fuck, what's his name? Fireman, right?
Oh yeah, Brand.
That's it. I was like, it's not Blaze. That's slightly. Yeah.
Okay.
I want him to show up in Arcane because he's one of those old ass champions that doesn't have an interesting backstory or lore to him. It's just like, it's a dude. It's a dude. He's on fire.
He was introduced how long ago too? Hang on a second.
He was recent when I started playing, and when I started playing, I think Hecarim had just come out and Varus was coming out like the week after I started playing.
I think that okay, he came out in 2011, so all right. Anyway, so Magu-chan.
Let's zip through Magu-chan after wasting some time talking about League of Legends.
Chapter 69. Mission Rescue the Disciple of Destruction. Yeah. Mission Rescue the Disciple of Destruction. So, hey, it's the base of the Holy Knights, and Nitsi comes in through a portal with Izuma. And the Knighthead guy from the 10 Generals meets him, and it's like, hey, it's good to have you back. And he says, you did a fine job on your mission monitoring the God of Destruction. And Izuma says as they walk off, hey, Lord Gildabar, why did you kidnap Rui Miyazaki? It's like a good point. It's like, why did you do that?
Why did you do that?
But Gildabar says, like, we didn't kidnap her. We've taken an innocent civilian who has been bewitched by an evil god into our care. Magu-cha's power is like a weapon of mass destruction. He's too dangerous to be in the hands of a young girl. So Izuma's like, oh, all right then. And he says, I guess you didn't believe anything that we put in our reports. You shouldn't separate her from Magu-cha. We will protect her everyday life. And the big reveal. He whips off his robe that signifies he belongs to the knighthood, and instead is wearing his school uniform underneath it, because that's who he truly is. I mean, look, I noticed that. Anyway. Also, Magu comes in through the portal, and Ren, who's got a baseball bat, which I'm sure will be very effective. Actually, if he takes out one of the generals by just bopping them with the baseball bat, I will. That'd be pretty
sweet.
Funny. And also, Neputagu's there, and he's got a knapsack.
Yeah, that he would.
So Gildabar's like, I mean, we did kind of expect this. It's still weird that you're working with a god of destruction, though. We get a recap of the story. We get a flashback to see that, oh, hey, Uneris' pigeon explains some stuff. Uneris sent a message to them that was written out like it was a ransom note, and it just says, like, I'm going home. And we've been ordered to return to headquarters, and a weakling has no choice. But a weakling like myself has no choice but to obey. And we see her going boo-hoo in a flashback, within the flashback where she is making the note. It's done like a ransom note as well, where she like snipped out kanji in order to spell stuff out, because She's Uneris, and that's what she does, I guess. So, but Uneris also tells them, like, hey, if you're going to return to headquarters as well, please stop by my message room within this branch location. Ninitsi has opened an astral gate that connects to headquarters. Don't forget to lock the door before you head back. So Magu's like, oh, we can just use that to go to headquarters. But he doesn't say it like that. He says it really, really ominously because he's a god. So yeah. So they make preparations. Izuma is shocked because both Magu and Ren are planning to go and save Ruru. And Ren just says, yeah, I'm going to get Ruru back. I'm going to make them tell me where they took her. And Izuma says, well, but outsiders can't come to headquarters. And Ren's like, I don't give a fuck. And there's a nice, really serious little moment where he reflects on after Ruru's dad died, presumably, where he says, because like as little kids, he's looking at her and she's all sad and he's just like, doesn't know what to do. And he says, yeah, Ruru should be able to live a peaceful and happy life. And that's what I vowed when she found herself on her own. So, but he's also like, and hey, Magu is the one that Ruru needs. So they make agreements to go together. Izuma makes up his mind on who to help people out. And then it turns out he also got the new weapon that he wanted from Uneris. So hey, he's got a Quincy bow now, it looks like. So yes. Anyway, we catch up at the present. They make demands that they set Ruru free, and then we find out that Nabutaku didn't know where they were going.
He's just brought along for the ride.
This is like, where are we? I gotta start my shift. But Ren says, hey, look, consider me like I'm hiring you for a part-time job because we've got to use your abilities in order to save Ruru. And I'll give you my pocket change if you help us. And Nabutaku's like, okay, no takesies backsies. He's a god.
I do love the no takesies backsies, like, pocket change, my guy. Pocket change. How much do they pay you at this job? Like, are you getting real wages? Now's the time to unite with your fellow workers. You shouldn't be letting this organization be taking you down. Our anti-work is the fastest growing subreddit right now.
All of my co-workers are the family I work for.
And they're taking advantage of you, to put to coup.
They let me live with them.
So they demand you to be on their premises at all hours to work. Mm.
Are you a servant? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, I'm starting to think you're being very greatly taken advantage of, my good boy.
What? No, they're humans that offer me provisions.
In exchange for my service and labor.
So Gildebar kind of mocks them, saying it's like, oh, I can't believe a boy who would rely on the powers of a wicked god to defy us, and Izuma Kisaragi, who addresses him as master. We are of a chosen bloodline, blah, 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 blah. They're saying that Ruru is receiving punishment for working together with gods, and immediately both Ren and Magu imagine that she's been strung up, like she strings all of the gods up in order to punish them, which, okay. It's much less amusing when you have.
I was gonna say it takes on a much less like amusing imagery when you're like, that's a person, that's a child,
as opposed to she's strung up like a stuffed animal basically. And then Gildebar says, if you wish to see her, proceed through that inner door. But there are 5 rooms beyond it, and there are 1-on-1 duels in each room beyond. Just calls it out. It's like, all right. And then Magu's like, nope, enough of this shit. And he just shoots a side beam and blows up the hall. And makes a pathway through all the rooms.
Thankfully, it was one straight room, because if it had been like different floors, it'd be like, oh, I have to aim upwards for this.
So that all happens. Immediately, both Ren and Nabutaku spring into action to make some food on Nabutaku's portable cooker so that Magu can eat so that he can restore his energy. Cool. And he makes this big speech about what they're here to accomplish and how he doesn't give a shit about the Holy Knighthood. And he says, we were invited into this land, left with a curt note. The power of Astro can only be used if a magic user installs the gate. On his own, Ninitsi is incapable of traversing vast distances. This was all her doing from the beginning. What say you, Providential Uneris? And hey, Uneris is there. She was never actually captured and made to come along outside of her will. It's her boss form, because, like, there's a portal under her where, like, her real form, I guess, his hands are coming out around her body. And she's like, yeah, I'm working for the Holy Knighthood, so this is my idea. And I'm going to be taking you on with my real body if you want to get Ruru back, so you better come at me all at once. And that's basically the chapter. So.
Yeah, there's some cool art. There's some stuff going on that's interesting. I guess we'll see what happens next week. But fun stuff. We're like we have like 6 more series to get through, so I can't really spend a ton of time on individual thoughts.
Umaneris also, I imagine, is going to be heavily involved in the next chapter, so great. Yeah. Protect me, Shugomaru. Chapter 2. Protect me while weeding Shugomaru. Shugomaru tries to protect Yojo while they weed. There is a teacher that is really intense that keeps on talking to them through a megaphone. Eventually, because Shugomaru is so ridiculous, he chops up his megaphone and the guy runs away. And then everyone's like, oh, I guess that this girl is cool and we can hang out with her and stuff. And just like, okay, I guess this is fine. It's all right if Shugomaru hangs out with me because I made friends after all. And then he gets freaked out because a fly buzzes near her head and he chops, nearly slicing everyone's heads off. And he also chops the building behind them in half. And everyone's really like freaked out by it and they decide to keep their distance. Except for one girl who's got a headband on. And that's their only character trait that we know of so far.
Yeah, they were nice to her.
Yes.
This chapter was not great. It reused the joke with the ice guy again, which is only going to be funny if they do that every single week for the rest of the series. And then at the end, when this ends in 18 chapters or whatever, it turns out he was Crossbones or whatever the fuck, Skull, whatever the bad guy's name is, fucking stupid thing. But yeah, this is not particularly a very funny series, and this was not a particularly good second chapter.
Yeah. I remember reading it. I had to actually just like flip through the pages to remind myself of anything that happened beyond just the premise of the series, though.
Yeah.
Dr. Stone!
Let's talk about a good series. Dr. Stone, time to get stoned!
Z equals 220, a desire for all. They've whipped up a model of the multi-component rocket that they're going to take to the moon, and Ryusui is very, very pleased with it. And as they look upon it, Sai says, yeah, whenever we were kids, whenever Ryusui made his model ships, he'd always wrote me in and make me run the numbers. And we see a flashback to when they were hanging out. Ryusui had a little model ship, and he's like, hey, all right, it's not enough that this is a model. Let's make a real ship and sail on it. Sai, can you program a sailing simulator for my ship? Oh, isn't that sweet? And now they've got a flight simulator for a spaceship.
Yeah.
And also, because it was made by Sai, it is also a video game.
Wow, come on.
Makes sense. It is a flight simulator. So Ryusui is doing really well on it. And he's like, yes. This is just a sim, though. Everyone's like, hey, yeah, there's nobody out there who could dream of being a better pilot than you, Ryusui. And then there are just the words that flash over the landscape. Stoneworld, experience, pilot. And as he thinks and he plays the game, or plays the simulator, he thinks back to when they were being attacked in America by Stanley in his like bomber plane, and how incredibly skilled of a pilot he was in that moment. And as he thinks about it, he just starts to like think, and he loses his focus. And also there are space invaders in the flight simulator because Sai really likes video games. To which Senku brings up, I mean, we might have to actually like get into one of these in space. You never know. So yeah.
It could happen.
Could happen. Also, they have to deal with the Medusa. Fortunately, Joel has come up with the solve everything invention. He's made a special.
It's treated like this is like a phenomenal invention. Now it's like, I mean, it's a watch. It's just a watch that pierces something and sprays fluid on you. And it's only one dose, so it's not like it's not like it's like, oh, it just does it over and over again. This could protect me forever. They're like, yeah, it only really works kind of in one level.
I mean, it is a clever idea, though.
It is, but he's like, what does he call it? A masterwork of my watchmaking career. And I was like, I don't know. Kind of feels like you just made a stopwatch with a fucking needle in it that pokes a potion and pours it on you, basically.
Yeah. So it's basically said that, like, hey, if you see a petrification beam coming towards you, you can set this thing on a timer. And so then after you measure it out properly, the wave washes over you, it petrifies you, but then the timer goes off, releases some revival fluid on you, so you just immediately come back from it. We've essentially defeated the petrification beam. Hooray! But so they also bring up, however, a bunch of other stuff like, hey, didn't you, there's the Mountain of Medusas at Ground Zero, remember? And Kohaku's like, oh, so if the petrification beam comes in multiple waves, how would we defend against that? So immediately the major problem with the watches is brought up. I mean, the solution seems to be you could wear multiple watches, but whatever.
Well, the idea, I guess, is if you get frozen and then undosed, are you going to have enough time to actually set the next watch?
Or you could set all three of them.
Well, you don't know. I presumably, if they're all in different waves, you don't see how fast the second and potentially third ones are going to actually know how long you have to set it for.
Tsukasa in that moment brings up, hey, if Y-Man decides to fire consecutive waves of petrification beams, they're going to be on a delay from each other, which means that after the initial attack, there's got to be a countdown. And before the next Medusa unleashes its wave of attack, that's when you've got to take action. With this fucking bazooka! Which fires nets. And grenades!
Yeah.
So essentially, they just start practicing shooting and destroying the fuck out of petrification devices. So Ryusui and Kohaku and Senku said about this training so that they can do this. Kohaku and Senku are not good at it, but Ryusui is. And said, like, yeah, he's really taking his job seriously, and we can really count on his shooting skills. But Ryusui is not convinced. He's got that thoughtful look on his face still. At night, he gazes up at the moon, and he thinks to himself, I just can't ignore it. There's a pilot better than me, who also happens to be the world's greatest marksman. And he goes to the hidden cave where Tsukasa was kept safe while they were off doing the stuff with the Petrification Kingdom. And he goes into the cave, which is honestly made more obvious by all the caution tape inside it.
It's like a video game's like, we have a secret here, but we want you to know there's a secret in here.
Yeah,
maybe you should check it out.
Wait a minute. These rocks are glowing.
This texture's different than everything else.
If my years of watching Hanna-Barbera cartoons have taught me anything, that's going to move. But, hey, they're keeping Stanley here. And we get this really cool full-page spread of him just staring thoughtfully directly into Stanley's petrified face. So, hey, it looks like there's more twists to be found in terms of finding out who the crew is. It's something that we wanted to have happen last time, spend more time actually following that process. And this is really cool. Seeing Ryusui show that, yeah, he wants to go and fucking go to space and stuff, but for the good of everything, he's willing to put that aside. It's nice.
Yeah, and I brought up Stanley last time, and I'm glad he is getting re-involved into the story. It's a good move.
So people in our Discord bring up the thought that maybe Xeno was planning on sabotaging the spaceship mission so that, he could get Senku out of the way, and Stanley going on the mission possibly prevents that from happening. So, different possibilities.
All right, we're going to move on to Mashle then. Before we do that, though, I real quick want to mention we have a member of our audience, LossThief, who also is a writer for ANN, recently had their house destroyed by a fire, and is basically, they've set up a GoFundMe for that, looking for any donations to help them out. I know what it's like to have a lot of things go wrong during the holiday season, so I'm going to make sure to include a link to this. If you're listening to this live, obviously I'll post it in our chat, but if you're listening to it later, I'll include a link into it in the YouTube description and everything like that. So if you feel, if you have the money, if you have the ability to, it would of course be greatly appreciated. And with that, let's talk about Mashle, Magic and Muscles. Hold on a second. There we go. Mashle, Magic and Muscles, Chapter 87, Dot Barrett, and the Two Foes Too Many. So we pick up last time where Charlie Capicio, no, that's too good of a name. What was his name? Contini, I think. Charles Contini, something like that. He got beat. Lance is like, cool, I'll take the key. I promised my mother I'd never go back on my word or whatever. And then he opens up a portal. He's like, here, you can go back to your room. And Lance, I assume, automatically knew this was going to happen because he goes into the portal key first. And yeah, the portal starts closing. So he drops the key and moves his hand. So he got the key to Dot, but he didn't lose an arm in the process because the guy's like, I was hoping you would lose an arm. And Lance immediately hits him with gravity magic that like breaks his back, I assume.
I think it's my favorite joke in the chapter, just seeing the way the guy's body is completely destroyed by this spell. Because, like, I'm actually disappointed now.
Yeah, it's not his back.
I thought his legs were still standing up.
That would have been fucking awesome.
But no, his feet are just kicked up. I'm disappointed now that I see it closer.
Yeah.
Aww.
So it's Dot and Rose Quartz, and Dot's like, well, Lance won his battle. All Mash needs now is for me to win mine. So I'm basically the main character, right? And this guy's what? The big bad's number 2? This is going to be tough. I'm not saying I can't beat him. It's just going to be a little tough, is all I'm saying. You know, no, you know what? I'm going to kick his ass. And then another member of the group shows up, and he's like, 2 of them? You know what? I can still win. Against 2, I played nice. I stayed out of it when there was another fight going on. This guy's probably not going to do that. So, I know it doesn't matter, though, because I got this. Basically, the guy, Rose Quartz, immediately starts doing the same thing. He puts a polarity on Dot and just starts throwing him into a steel ball over and over again. And Dot doesn't have the super speed of Mash to turn it into a shaved ball. Nope. And the other guy could shoot acid, which seems like not a good combo, but just 2 very strong things that exist in the same space together. So Dot activates his form. They don't. I forgot the name of it. It's like Ira Cruz or some shit like that. He was like some special thing. We can see it happen again. He gets the cross on his forehead. This magic power spikes. He's doing a bunch of attacks, but it's like, oh, did I get them? No, they're fine. They can use their ability to, magnetize themselves to the ceiling and avoid everything. But Dot used that to get so close. It's like, how did he get that close? And he looks and sees Dot's feet have explosion marks all over them. It's like, he used explosion magic on himself. And Dot says, not much you could do to me when I'm this close to you. Rose Quartz is like, but you can't attack us at this range either. And Dot says, idiot, I ain't like you. And he's just shooting out a whole bunch of explosions. He says, there's nothing naive about fighting for a friend. In fact, it takes guts. And unlike you, I'm not afraid to die if I have to. Your turn, Silver Spoon. Die 100 times. And there's a big page of explosions happening. And then we end the chapter with Mash running through the darkness, saying, I know Lance and Dot are out there doing their best. I need to get out and fast.
Also, he's only just said, there's something up about this place. Yeah, it's an alright action chapter. Dot got to do some stuff, but it's alright.
Yeah, Dot's power set doesn't lend itself particularly well to cool moments, per se. Just a bunch of explosions, which is very cool, but, I mean, it isn't as funny as other chapters, and it's not also as action cool as other chapters as well.
Yeah. So, it's just kind of okay. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, the Elusive Samurai, it's chapter 41, Mask 1335. Oh shit, it looks like Tokiyuki and company are caught now, because there's 100 soldiers on horseback surrounding them as they're trying to carry messages back and forth. Genba tries to get them some cover with a smoke bomb, and he also throws down some cantrips so that they can escape. But unfortunately, Sagamune just spots them with his magic fucking eyeballs. He shoots an arrow, pins Tokiyuki to a tree, and that gives some of his soldiers enough time to quickly grab him. And Genba gets taken down. Kodro gets taken down. It looks like they're done for. But then arrows rain down on Sadamune's men. Who is responsible for this? I shall tell you. And we get a Darkwing Duck speech. Heaven's vengeance allows none to escape. The guardian deity of Shinano sees all. The Shinano mask to the rescue. And It's Yorishige. Like, everyone immediately is like, that's Yorishige. That's just
Yeah.
Yorishige. But he's wearing a mask. But it's just Yorishige. He's wearing his regular clothing, but just a mask, too. So everyone just reacts completely unbelievably to this. And then Moritaka, Yorishige's like right-hand man, who is also wearing a mask, is just like, you see, the Shinano mask is a divine incarnation that appears to save people who are in trouble. And so anyways, it's like, you're Yorishige. It's very obviously is like, no, I'm not. I'm Suwa Mask. You just said a different name. You're not. No. So, but then Yorishige gets much more challenging, and he says, "Oh yes, if you want to prove that I'm Yorishige, then you just have to capture me. But can you do that?" And Sunway gets pissed off, and so he just turns his horse around and says, "Fall back. We're even in numbers with them, and they've got the high ground, Anakin." So he doesn't think it's worth pursuing a fight at this point, and they ride off. So Yorishige says that the real reason that they actually came into this area was because they were going to reinforce the troops in the center. They were basically going to follow a similar path of action as Tokiyuki's group, but he also kind of realized that there was Tokiyuki running around. Hey, that kid I was suspicious of is running around. Maybe I could get him to talk and figure stuff out. So, yeah. So Yorishige says in this moment, like, look, it's too risky now for you to be delivering messages like this. So leave that to the others, and you are coming back to Suwa with me. The farther I stray from Suwa, the more people, and as more people join the fight, the more that I don't have my precognitive abilities, the less able I am to predict what's going to happen. So Tokiyuki is very upset to hear this, but Yorishige starts to say, look, all the people who accompany the Three Gate Generals, they aren't going to give you up if they admit, they're not going to admit involvement if they're tortured or anything. But that's not to protect me. They believe that Suwa Myojin is going to rise up one day. They're prepared, and you don't need to bear that burden. And you're crucial to that eventual goal. We can't lose you, so you've got to avoid danger. But Tokiyuki just snaps at him and shouts out, I want to be useful to you. You've got an important destiny too, but you just keep on giving to me. By serving as your liaison between your allies, I felt like I was repaying my debt to you, and that made me happy. And now I have to go back? So Yorishige mumbles something to himself after hesitating. He starts to say, no, I'm the one. But before Tokiyuki can figure out what the hell he's talking about, he gets back to his normal self. He's all enthusiastic and, cringy. And he says, okay, you're not allowed to engage in combat in any way. You're going to keep on delivering messages and observing from the rear. So Tokiyuki is happy with that. He goes off and leaves Yorishige behind. And as he leaves, Moritaka looks at Yorishige, who has snatched off the guy's mask, and he's wiping tears away because he's thinking to himself just how great Tokiyuki has actually been to him. He every day has gotten to live with him like this and see his growth and see how kind he is. And he says, the one receiving too much is me. Oh, isn't that nice? Anyway, there's a fight going on. Fighting. Ayako is participating in the battle. She's going to go and fight alongside her father. Fubuki is analyzing the battle. And then, oh man, the Kikuchi showed up. He is bravely, from within the confines and safety of his fortress, shooting people. That's the end of the chapter.
Yes. Not a ton to say on this one. I do like the joke of he was wearing a mask, and then the real explanation of just like, look, you don't have proof that I did it, so even if we all know it's me, you actually can't do anything about this situation. We've reached the point where we're not really pretending anymore. At this point, we both kind of openly know that we hate each other.
Look, everyone knows that Mr. America is Hulk Hogan, but
you still have to get the proof and have him set up to a lie detector first. But the lie detector was rigged or something.
Yeah.
Which does sound like Hulk Hogan's usual level of heroism.
No, the lie detector was a Hulkamania, brother.
Yeah. It said its prayers and ate its vitamins. All right, real quick, let's talk about Black Clover page 315, Ultra Giant Showdown. Go Power Rangers. This chapter really is improved if you play that soundtrack in the background, which, to be fair, most chapters are improved by that, even if they don't have a connection to Power Rangers in it. They're fighting off the monster, but it's not going so well because it can just slowly melt the actual Megazord. I know there's other names I could use for it right now, but we're short on time, so I'm just going to use whatever words come out of my mouth. So they're in like a bad situation right now. Fuego Leon and Mario Leona are able to get up under the oppressive gravity and shoot a bunch of fire. I don't know what it's meant to accomplish, but I guess it's another distraction that the gravity monster thing has to deal with, that Lucifero has to deal with. They punch it, they do a bunch of things, but hey, it's torn apart. They're like, oh, that was our last chance. We're all done for. But all the Black Bulls are like, nope, it's going to be okay. Isn't that right, Asta? And we get a 2-page spread of Asta taking out Yami's sword. He's like really far away. I don't know how he got there that fast, to be completely honest. But I guess Asta's going to save the day here. That's the chapter.
Yep. The one thing that I have to note is, so we cut around to everyone who is like buckling under the gravity, like all across the country, as the battle is going on. But when I first saw this, I thought, are all those people on the castle that the Black Bulls turned into their Megazord? Which does make me like legitimately ask, like, they turned an entire castle into their Megazord thing. Were there people inside of it that are now just like
Nick,
caught in this battle?
Yes, there were innocent people aboard the Death Star. It's fine. All right? These things happen.
All right. Cool. Chapter 1033 of One Piece. Shimotsuki Kozaburo. That whole thing that we left off the last chapter on, not going to talk about it all this week. This doesn't come up. But hey, Zoro is having difficulty with Enma, his new sword. It is surging within his grasp, and he's having to use armament hockey in order to hold it steady. King uses the distraction to attack him, but then he just like stops right in front of him, and Zoro's like, "What the hell are you doing?" Stabs him right in the gut, and King goes, "Jackpot!" And there's a big explosion. Oh, that's not good.
Ruh-roh.
We cut to where Sanji is. There's a bunch of, wrecked room around him and stuff like that. And Queen's just talking about King. And he says, yeah, that guy is a remnant of the extinct Lunarians, a monster capable of surviving in any natural environment. In the distant past, his people were known as gods, and they had tea with dinosaurs like this one. So, Sanji says, "What? Well, if they were known as gods, why'd they die out?" And Queen's like, go read a history book, and starts shooting a breath weapon at him. Fair enough.
Yep.
Zoro's been knocked on his ass. He says that he protected himself with arm and hockey from the explosion, but he's like, I have no idea how he's alive. He literally blew himself up. He slashes through King's neck with another attack. It does nothing. He just comes back at him, and he does his weird slingshot spike thing with his head. And Zoro's like, oh man, that it's like, I can't believe that he's not affected at all. And he gets ready to block the attack, but Enma starts acting up again, and so he's distracted, and the stake pierces his side, and he starts coughing up blood and stuff. So Zoro's sent flying and catapulting as well through rocks and stuff because of the absurd power of, the elastic Pteranodon spike. That's a thing. And as he falls, his swords fall out of his grasp, and so he grabs onto each one as he comes across it. He remembers back when he first got Kitetsu, and he also had talked with Tengu about it. And he keeps on falling, and then he finds Wado Ichimonji, his first sword, and he remembers the promise that he first made that he was going to become a great master swordsman, so great that his name would be known in heaven. And then we cut to him talking with the Tengu again, who says, it must be some twist of fate. You see, that white blade and Enma were both crafted by the same man, Shimotsuki Kozaburo. And Zoro says to himself, it all came so sudden, I wasn't putting it together. Why would there be a famous katana of Wano in some tiny village of the East Blue? And he starts fighting with King some more, having to deflect attacks that are being launched out from his fiery wings or something. And then we cut to a conversation they had with Momonosuke about the meaning of the word Sunachi, which apparently he heard from the old guy in his village. And he thinks to himself, the old man was always sitting there at the coast, and I never knew his name. And it wasn't even until the day he died that I learned he was Kuina's grandpa. The Tengu says, the blacksmith Shimotsuki Hozaburo, he broke the laws and left this land over 50 years ago. And then we get a flashback. Black borders, get ready to be sad. Except not really. Nothing
Don't
really
worry.
happens.
They extended Zoro's flashback to keep it just as boring.
And we see that while Zoro was like practicing, or I guess had just been practicing. No, he's practicing. Okay. He's talking with the old man of the village, who says, yeah, Sunachi. It's a magic word that summons strength into your heart. And Zoro's like, yeah, but it sounds weird. I'm not going to say it. Did you used to be a samurai? Everybody at the dojo says you used to be a samurai. And the old man says, shut up, or the Navy will come and invade the village. So Zoro's like, oh, fine. I'm going to go hit stuff with my swords. I never want to see any protracted flashback with Kid Zoro in it. He was such a little shit. But then he says that because Kuina beat him in practice, and he's like, I need more practice. And so the blacksmith's just like, you have these swords. And Zoro's like, I can't pay for these.
I said practice, not fucking weapons. I'm not trying to kill her. He's like,
hey,
don't.
Kuina, you fucking ready now?
He's like, don't you worry, the staircase will do that for you.
What are you talking about? We cut to her house. The staircase sneers evilly. Turns out the staircase was a devil fruit.
I, who ate the stair fruit all those years ago, I'm gonna claim my first victim.
Oh God. So, but the blacksmith says like, they're total crap anyway. I don't need them, and I can only seem to forge crap anymore anyway. So you can use them for practice. But then he says, listen closely. A sword is like a kitchen knife, but for murder. They are created to kill people. A blacksmith hones his craft so that his weapons are better at killing than any other. A sword has its own personality. A swordsman must master it and bend it to his will. Do you think a dangerous sword is cursed? No, that's the sign of great quality. When the weak fear a sword and call it cursed, that is a badge of honor. They should be frightening. They're meant to cause terrible harm. There was one blade I crafted when I was a young man, the greatest weapon I ever made. Its disposition deadly serious. Just holding in your hand sent a shiver down the spine. So I gave that masterpiece the name of the king who watches over hell. And Zoro's like, I'm an atheist, so it took me this long to realize that the king of the underworld is Enma. And then he realizes my village is named for Shimotsuki. So I guess it wasn't just a coincidence the whole time. And the old man was a samurai. He was the blacksmith who crafted these great weapons. And then he thinks about what the sword shop owner from way back when told him, which is a sword chooses its wielder. And he says, it came to me. It chose me so it could test me. And he puts on armament hockey on his arm and grips Enma and picks it up. And he says, a sword is honest and direct, not wicked. It was my strength that was lacking. Does this mean that even with so much hockey being drained away, Odin wielded you as though you were light as a feather? And so he starts to think about what he should do in order to wield Enma properly. As a bunch of random assholes gather around the battle and are like, hey, King, let us fight the asshole. Oh shit, hockey. And they fall over. But Zoro just says to himself, if I have to keep exuding hockey in order to use this thing, it's going to kill me. And then King looks at him and he's like, I see. You intend to be a king then? Because he is using Conqueror's Haki. But he thinks back all the way to when he met Luffy. When Luffy said, if you want to be the world's greatest swordsman, that's great. And it's fitting because your new boss is going to be the king of the pirates. And Zoro says, that's right. I've got a promise to keep to my captain and my best friend.
So, a bunch of people were really they were super excited about this chapter because back in an SBS, fucking I don't know how many years ago, Oda was asked to draw what each of the different swords of Zoro's would be like if they were personified, and the one for Watto looks exactly pretty much like this guy, a little bit different facial hair down by the chin, but it looks identical. And they're like, see, it was always known. And I'll be honest, look, I think Oda is a very talented author in a lot of ways. Everything about this flashback reeks of something Oda was retroactively no, I gotta figure this out after the fact. How did one of those swords from this kingdom get back there? Oh, I already drew what that fucking dude looks like. I'll just fucking change his face up a little bit. It works out perfectly.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it seems like a remarkably fortunate coincidence, and then it's like, well, how did that happen? Sometimes you don't really want that question to be actually answered, because while this is a serviceable explanation, it does take a lot of the mystique out of it. Now, that said, I do like a lot of the stuff that this guy says about swords.
I do think the ultimate details are cool. I do like the ultimate message, and Zoro, I think, looks cool at the end of it. It was just one of those moments where I was like, sometimes Oda's human and just just does things. This is one of those moments of Oda did it again, that son of a bitch, until we get Jin, and then I'm gonna say it all up and down the episode. You won't even be able to stop me. I'm gonna be so pumped.
I do kind of wonder. So I did see some people saying that that some of this what Zoro is saying is also saying my oldest friend. It could be translated as here, and I do kind of wonder, because I'm sure that when he says my captain and my best friend, he is referring to Luffy in both cases. But I do kind of wonder if maybe the second might maybe actually be referring to Kuina and the promise he made to her. Which would be a nice thing to kind of make it feel like everything is being tied together in this moment. But yeah, I'm sure it's just meant to be Luffy. I do really like the way that we bring up hey, even that stuff that one, sword shop owner was saying comes back, and in terms of helping Zoro realize what he's got to do. It's cool stuff.
Yeah.
That's going to do it for all of the manga this week. So we're going to wrap things up here. Thank you guys for joining us for Weekly Manga Recap. We record this show. We'll get to all the announcements and stuff at the end. Let me just rattle off my spiel here, and we'll get out of it. So thank you everyone for joining us for Weekly Manga Recap. We record the show here on twitch.tv/RoloT Wednesdays, starting usually around 7:30 Eastern time of the evening. But to stay updated on exactly when we go live, follow us on Twitter @RoloT, @NickFTime are your hosts, @Demir Podcast is the official podcast account. You'll send out a tweet when it goes live. You can also join us on our Discord server. We'll make an announcement on there when it goes live, and you can participate in our great community where we talk about the chapters that they come out each week. We talk about the series that we're getting ready for the recommendation. All sorts of fun stuff happens on there. That is also a place where you can go to find the Google Doc that is maintained by Ninja X3i, which keeps track of all sorts of content and information that has to do with the long run of the podcast that we've had so far. It's very nice that we have records of the stuff that we've done, because I wouldn't be able to keep track of it. So,
no, not at all. And we're coming up on the end of the year, so we got a bunch of end of the year awards and things like that coming up.
Be sure to take part in the polls that also get put up in the Discord by Ninja X3i for best moments that we've had on the podcast, best moments in the manga that we've covered, and all sorts of cool stuff. We would also like to extend special thanks to Steve Man, our occasional title artist. You can check out his work wherever boobs are allowed to be drawn on the internet, including Twitter, Steve Man Art. And Wednesday L. Cheddar and Milo Jack Stillitz for creating the opening sequence of Weekly Manga Recap, which can be seen on our YouTube channel. YouTube.com/Weekly Manga Recap is where we have the video versions of each episode of the podcast. And you can go and listen to the audio versions on weeklymangarecap.podbean.com, as well as on Spotify, and generally anywhere podcasts can be listened to. And for bonus content, including monthly other recap and other bonus stuff that we've recorded. We did a tier list very recently, which you can check out. Patreon.com/weekly manga recap if you want to check that out.
All right, let's get to our MVPs and chapter of the week. I think my chapter of the week is gonna go to... Nothing was really great this week. I guess I give it to Dr. Stone. No. I'm gonna let you go first on that.
I'm going to give my chapter of the week to One Piece. I know that in the grand scheme of things, it does some of it does, yes, feel a little bit, yeah, sure, why not? But I really like the way that things are structured and the way that Zoro experiences his flashback. And I like a lot of the moments in terms of like what it means to like truly master a sword and everything. It's just a cool chapter all the way around, and it was not really something I was expecting that we would get in this exact way. My MVP is, however, going to be Ryusui. I thought that it was cool that we had that moment where he acts very unselfish despite, everything about him, and decides that he's going to just do what's best for the team. So.
I'm still not sure. I guess, I'll give it to Dr. Stone. Like, it's like the end is good. The rest of it's physically there, but nothing else is really calling to me. And my character of the week is going to be the lead from Ayashimon. I don't know his name, and I tried to scroll through a bunch of chapters and I couldn't find it. So there you go.
It's on the board.
It's on the board. The audience picked Do as their chapter of the week and Zolo as their character of the week.
Is that first one true?
Yeah, it won this week.
Oh,
there was a bunch of, I didn't want to say simps, but there's a bunch of simps in our Discord who we're all excited for. It's the same people who liked Tokyo or the Red Hood thing. Like, that just wasn't gonna go anywhere. Like, they sometimes when one series ends, the misguided affection they have has to latch on to something else.
So,
and like a Greek tragedy, like it's the fucking dude pushing that boulder up the hill over and over again. They attach it to something else that's also just doomed to end in about 20 chapters.
So big women and tiny monsters are how you get our audience on your side. Yeah, so.
Oh yeah, if they made like a giant tittied version of Pokemon, our Discord would go wild.
I'm going to choose not to say something and let the episode end before we go exploring that topic any further.
Before we start searching things in Google we can't take back. Goodbye, everybody.